So I'm going in and I'm loading boxes one by one. I set it down, and just as I'm about to leave, this one employee is like, "What does it say here? What is this?" And he picks it up. And I don't know what it says because I didn't write it. So he totally caught me off guard, which really screwed with me because I did really well with the postal inspector explaining Bane posting, but I did not do a good job explaining this to the post office in front of like an actual line of people. He just reads it out loud. He just says, "Maple syrup based anal lubricant." and I am I am just like starstruck in a bad way. I'm just like, "Oh God, what? Why does it say that?" Right? And I mumble out just a horrible defense because I'm panicking, and I basically say while choking over myself, "Yeah, the customer he asked for that. He wanted that." And then I proceed to leave. I just leave and I don't look back and I drive away. I get back and I tell our guy who had what happened, and he's just sitting on the floor like crying, laughing. I'm just like, "Bro, you can't do this to me." Oh,
Our what was that, like pre-2019 KommandoStore was like basically one long green text.
You're listening to the Art and More podcast with your hosts, Nathan and B.R. Nathan is a Canadian illustrator with a couple years of military experience, and B.R. is a British anarchist that moved to the States. Both are passionate shooters and community builders. Together, they run the Seaburn art page. Enjoy the show.
And welcome back to the Art and War podcast. This is a weirdly formal introduction. BR, I don't know why you make me do these.
I don't make you. You just started, and I was really impressed.
Well, you're looking at
Carry
me.
on, keep going.
sounds good. Keep going.
So we're a really professional podcast, and this is a really professional cold open. Today we've got Basil and Ashur, the founders of KommandoStore, for the first time ever, actually, coming down from the cabin in the mountains where they do not send
confetti
devices to federal buildings. BR, maybe you censor
There's
that.
a story about that later.
There's gonna be like 6 beeps. Hell yeah! No, thank you for joining us, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Ashur.
I'm Basil. Really happy to be here. Like Nathan said, first time being public, so we're just really stoked.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys coming on and kind of breaking your embargo with us.
Yeah, I think we realized maybe like a year ago that it wasn't exactly like an intentional embargo, and they're like, well, we should probably.
Yeah, people might want to hear from us. We really just kind of like stuck on our own little island, so it's about time we kind of started speaking to everyone else,
Yeah, it's one of those difficult things, and like my presence doing all of this kind of stuff has been basically anonymous, aside from being like just a disembodied voice until we recently started doing videos. So you guys having done this for like over a decade now, right?
Yeah,
11 years in March.
Yeah, 11 years basically anonymous with like you said, stylistically anonymous more recently, but with purpose in the first place, like you were telling us before the show. Like, you guys want to get into kind of the origins and why you had to be anonymous in the first place?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can start there.
Yeah, we can hop right in.
Yeah.
Let's
So
start at the beginning.
You want to start at the beginning, or the beginning of being anonymous?
That's up to you.
We should do the beginning.
We should do the beginning.
There you go.
That feels like the right spot, right? Okay.
I think so.
All right, so senior year of high school. So me and Ashur met in high school, been friends for a couple years. We were both in the trap shooting club, both like, the outdoors, camping, gun stuff, being nerds. And one day, Ashur found where the U.S. auctioned off all of its military surplus. And that world was completely foreign to us at the time.
It was like our War Dogs moment where they talk about how
Yeah.
they found like the contracting portal for the U.S. government. This was our version of that.
Exactly. So it's 2013. The time was called Gov Liquidation. It's now turned into like a couple other things. But it kind of made our heads spin because we were looking around at like all the stuff they're auctioning, whether it was just like whole Humvees, like random things, like entire like oil containers, or even just some of the small stuff, And the thing that really caught our eye at the time was a bunch of lots for these frame load-bearing backpacks for the Marines. So they're ILBEs. So they're in woodland marpat. That's what the Marines use to ruck around like 100 pounds of gear all over the place. And we were browsing around. We had a couple ideas, and we finally decided, hey, you know what? Let's go for it, right? So the catch for this was they're all auction lots, so you can't just buy one or two. we wanted to kind of mess around with it. So we said, okay, let's try opening up an eBay store. We'll try and win a lot. We'll keep, some for ourselves, and we'll flip the rest. So we won the lot on the backpacks. And at the same time, we were kind of setting up the eBay store. We decided to put up a post on the K-board on 4chan for like a group buy, right?
Oh,
Actually, I'll let you take this part.
So even like before like going into this, we were a little bit naive about like even just how the auctions were, because we were looking at all these listings and we're like, man, this is like $10 for like 100 backpacks. And like in the end, we did not pay $10. It was definitely more than $10, but like it sucks you in when you're like browsing through.
Well, that was the part that really kind of made our head spin. And I should have clarified is like the backpacks new were like 200 MSRP, but we're looking at a lot of 45 for $4 each, right? For the average rates that these bids were kind of closing on. We're like, damn, like, we're two 18-year-olds like, oh, we could get rich quick, right? But also it's like, it's really cheap. And we had a couple other ideas too. The first idea actually was really stupid. We wanted to bid on like 15 lots and put together like an ammo can survival kit. And I was so glad we didn't do that. It was kind of cool, but it immediately became like a logistical like impossibility. And I'm like, okay, it's kind of corny anyways. So we just stuck with one product, and it was those backpacks. Yeah.
But so there, if you look deep enough in the archive, you can still find the first fateful post by KommandoStore on K. And this was like 2012, 2013 K. So it was truly back when it was the most magical of like the
places.
Magical place, right? And from that era, like you also get people like, I'm not sure how much he wants to be associated with it, but like Grantham was like that era of K, and like quite a big number of other people can all kind of like trace their roots back to like that one Petri dish at that one moment. And it was excellent. Like you would have all of these like really bright, really nerdy people sharing everything.
It was a creative place and an inflammatory place, and now it's just a really inflammatory place. But back then there was like a spirit, more of a spirit of sharing and adventure and like nonsense for like more of a lighthearted sense of fun in it. Depending on your tastes.
It was the era of like the rifle is fine meme and like all that other stuff. I'm like the aftershocks of like those like maybe 2 or 3 years are still like going around. But we posted that first post. We got 200 plus emails in less than a day.
Yeah, and that was crazy to us, because we just said, hey guys, we get some of these backpacks. If you want to do a group buy, here's our email address. And the email address at the time made no sense because we had set up the eBay like store with no care. So it was fifthworldimports@gmail.com, because that just kind of came to mind. And we had, when we were setting up the eBay store, I remember looking at Ash, was like, what should we call this? And he was like, I was like, I don't know. And I was like, Nugget Enterprises. There we go. Let's put it down there. And we were pulling from the slang for the Moe's and the Gaunt, which is a nugget, because they come in whole crates, right? Like McDonald's.
Oh, I was thinking a person without limbs.
So that's actually...
That is the most K thing.
Exactly, right? It was just a really quick decision. So I was like, that's actually how we started as Nugget Enterprises before we came KommandoStore. But so we started getting the emails in, and it was nuts. Like the reception, like the attention, the amount of interest was like, okay, cool. Well, we ended up ditching the eBay plan because we didn't need it, because we already had more than 45 interested parties, because we'd only won a lot of 45. So we just ran it off of a PayPal and a Blogspot.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah. It got the job done. And it's like, 2013 too, but still like super rudimentary. We had no idea what we were doing.
Pre-Shopify.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Pre a lot of things. Seriously.
Yeah.
Kids these days. Anyways, they have it so good. But yeah. So, fumbled with how freight shipping works, which was a huge tragedy before we even get to
we
it.
had no idea at all. Like, so like obviously like LTL in America, it is the foundation of civilization is trucking in America. Yeah. And we were so freaking ignorant, like even the basics, like,
so you win, when you win an auction, at one of these government surplus places, right? They have the depot, and basically you're supposed to send your courier to go pick it up, yada, yada. So, I Googled like I need freight shipping.com, and I ended up on a place called UShip, which is basically just, a random truckers just place bids for
It's
your
like
lot.
the Craigslist of freight
Yeah.
shipping.
Yeah,
Like,
so it's not bad if you know what you're doing, but I didn't. And so I wish I could remember more, but it's been 11 years and I was 18 years old. But so in terms of like what I understood what was happening at the time, but I'm pretty sure like we misplugged in so many numbers that to make it short here, the freight shipment went to Minnesota where we were located because it was coming from I think Ohio. We never picked it up because I didn't know how to do that. It then went back to Ohio, and then I found out it had gone back to Ohio. I think someone must have felt bad for me because then they just shipped it for free back to Minnesota, and I caught it on the last 2 days before it was about to be shipped back to Ohio. So I found out like it's at a terminal, and they're like, and I had set it up just to be delivered to a terminal. I didn't even think about like how's it going to get to my house, like a dock. What's that? So I call the terminal and I'm like, oh shoot, I gotta go get this. Like they're gonna send it back. So I drove there in my tiny 2-door Jeep Wrangler, and I arrived there and the guy was like, what's the pro number? I'm like, what's that? And those I don't know, it's basically just tracking, but for freight. Got that figured out with him, and he's like, okay, cool. Where are we loading this into? I'm like, my Jeep. So he forklifts 2 pallets out into basically the parking lot. And I stuffed the Jeep with these backpacks. And I stuffed like as much of the Jeep as I could. So I only had my half of the driver window, like the front windshield, and my driver's side window. And I couldn't see out anywhere else. And I had to do 2 trips. And I have photos that I packed it like so airtight. Really nervous drive home because I like couldn't see out the entire right side 180 degrees. But I made it, and then so I did those 2 trips. Yes.
It smells like sweaty marine.
Oh,
Just to
yeah.
get like
Oh,
the
yeah.
ASMR
Nice.
like whole vibe going. It
The kind of
smells
waxy
like
stuff.
hockey
Hockey
pads.
pads. Yeah. If
Yeah.
anyone knows what hockey pads or football pads smell like, it's the same thing. Any sport gear you've sweat in, that is most marine surplus because
Your poor Jeep.
you could see it as sports gear that was sweat in by big guys, and that's what it was. And it
Sometimes
smelled like
you know how people talk about like their gear being salty. Like with the Marines, you definitely tell like you can visibly see the
That
salt.
shit's
yeah.
probably in the air.
Yeah.
hell yeah. So yeah, made it back to my basement. And then from there, the next like thing to really figure out was how to ship these things out to customers. And that was like another thing. I was like, oh, all right, well, the post office gives out free boxes if you buy this postage, so let's do flat rate. So we're like, okay, cool, we'll go USPS flat rate. So they have a couple different flat rate sizes, but the shtick of it is it's relatively restrained with like how big a package you can have. So they had 2 different kinds of the large size flat rate box, and we went with what's known as at the time as the board game box. So it looks like literally the same shape as like the box for Monopoly or Life. It's that long rectangle. I was like, oh, the backpack, we can just shove it in there. So we spent an evening at Ashur's house, like Karma Sutra with these backpacks, trying to put them into these boxes, and we get it like just right, and then the whole thing would just pop. It would pop all the seams. So then that's when we realized towards the end, wait a minute, it fits in the box they came in, and that was also free. However, to get one of those, you have to buy 25. So whatever 45 times 25 is, we bought that many large flat rate board game boxes. Don't know if that's not a felony. We didn't misship them,
No.
but definitely kind of misappropriate a little bit. We put them all in those, and then we forgot to keep 2 for ourselves.
Yeah, it was like one of those galaxy brain moments of like, it's completely free, even though we have 25 unused board game boxes because we're shipping every backpack in the box that the boxes come in. So we were like, this is going to be a great savings. We're not having to pay for boxes, but we accumulated like hundreds of unusable board game boxes that were in Basil's basement for like 3 years.
No, it
4
moved.
years.
That pile of boxes moved into our first warehouse with us. We kept them for a while. We eventually ended up. No, they're not really. We eventually stopped using flat rate postage. It just wasn't like an economical for us. We did end up giving them back years later. So they ended up finding a home in the end. They're okay.
So the postal inspector, if you're listening to this conversation, we did give back the flat rate boxes.
Those guys have a badge. You don't want to mess with them.
Yeah. Everything said on Art and War is purely hypothetical and conjecture. We are a podcast made up entirely of silly boys, and it's all satire. All satire.
We're all cartoon characters.
Damn
No
straight.
federal crimes here.
Yeah. So that's the actual that's the true origin story.
Yeah, that was round 1. So
What
we
was
did that.
Round two.
Well, so we forgot to keep 2 backpacks for ourselves. Kind of got like lost in the
Oh.
sauce, you know?
Yeah.
But it was also really cool. It was also really fun. So we were just like, all right,
The
let's do
Jonah
it
Hill
again.
War Dogs addiction started.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
that,
we
yeah.
did we did it again. However, this time we learned rudimentary lessons. So we were still picking up stuff, but we knew how to do that at least from the from the freight depot. So we went for two auctions instead. So we did a bunch of marine coyote fleece pullovers. And then from there, it kind of snowballed. We ended up finding our first wholesaler. We kept doing auctions. And then one point in time, a couple months later, we kind of went, oops, I think this is a company. We probably need basic company things like a tax structure, maybe a partnership agreement.
Yeah.
And so we put that together, and then poof, there's Nugget Enterprises.
How long were you guys Nugget Enterprises?
I mean, technically, we still are.
Yeah.
But
oh, really?
uh,
That's the.
yeah. So
we still
Commando
are.
Store is how we're known, right? But like the
Mm.
actual company is still Nugget. So
Fuck yeah.
we're still, and we kept that too. Even when we moved to South Dakota, we like transferred all of that over, which I'm happy about.
Yeah.
I still feel it's some nice deep lore.
Yeah, so Commando Store is just the DBA doing business as.
But the true lineage.
Yeah, the mother company, as we call it, is Nugget Enterprises.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, trying
So,
to
like-
true to this day.
That first like progression as high schoolers, had you guys graduated yet by the time you'd done that first auction, or were you still in school trying to like navigate starting a business?
Yeah, so the first like 2 rounds, we were still in high school, and then basically as we like finally cemented and figured out like the basics, and set up the company became Nugget Enterprises, was just a month before we graduated. So we kind of graduated high school with all the plans and aspirations that came from that aside, with like this accidental company just kind of in our hands.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. I mean, like, had you guys had any kind of entrepreneurial like mindset before that, or did this literally just because you were like, oh, this would be a cool thing to do, like, just end up accidentally running a
For
company?
me, it like happened to me. I definitely I don't put words in Asher's mouth, but like I was ready to go become a cog in a wheel, like being a software engineer or something really dumb like that.
Yeah.
And then this just kind of like fell into our lap.
You know how the meme of like the children they crave the mines.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the Minecraft thing. It's like we craved the corporation. we didn't quite realize it, but like 17 like, oh my god, you can just do this.
Yeah,
I
crave the
need to
syrup.
run a company.
Yeah. And like the other thing about this is like this is all out of Basil's basement. So there's a whole era of KommandoStore, like years
First
of
2
KommandoStore
years, yeah.
that is entirely Basil's childhood basement, and we
Yeah, I was
slowly
going to say,
take
were
over.
you still living at your family's
I
place?
was still living with my parents. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually,
What did
just
they think about this?
well, well, that's how I ended up leaving the basement. my dad reached a point where, the basement, it wasn't a small basement. It was a pretty sizable basement. There was actually a lot of different rooms down there. And I slowly kept like taking up and occupying more rooms, like workshop. No, this is now the sleeping bag and backpack jungle gym, and when it got to the final room before the staircase, which is like a gym my dad set up, that's when my dad was like, okay, this is leaving now. We're going to find you a normal warehouse space. This has got to go. But until the bitter end, I cranked out like the maximalist amount of efficiency in that place. 'Cause, I mean, we had the workshop was actually waist high in sleeping bags, so you did like crawl around it. It's really cool, actually. It's kind of fun. But I did things like I'd build whole ball pits out of chicken wire and PVC tubing.
No girls allowed.
And yeah, seriously.
Yeah, actually.
And like I put like a bunch of fleeces in there, and totally never took a nap in there because that'd be gross. Also, you know how at like hospitals, like the way they store medical documents with the shelves like right next to each other, and so they'll either like the whole thing will be on rails and it'll come apart laterally, or it'll like slide out to access one shelf at a time. So that's how I did all the shelving in the warehouse. So they're on caster wheels, and I'd slide them out like you take like a carbon dated sample like out of the earth to access the shelves in order to like keep everything in the basement.
Yeah. Oh, and there was a single narrow stairway that was like twisty and turny and like very narrow, very, very narrow, because the house is like a Victorian house, like old house. So to get to the warehouse in the basement, you have to like hand carry everything up and down this like narrow staircase.
Yeah, the door frame to the basement was 2/3 of one at a diagonal. So when I get shipments, I'd have to haul them in laundry bins down and just dump them on the floor, and all packages had to be taken up. So it was like, imagine if like the front door to your business just had like a hurdle from like running track, and like, oh, see you later, and you like jump through it, or like the dock door just had like a little like a bunch of rings you had to throw stuff through.
What did this room smell like?
Different surplus has different smells.
Oh God, here we go.
So we talked about hockey pads, right? A lot of the U.S. stuff, I'm not gonna lie, they don't like wash it, or they don't wash it well enough, so it's like kind of salty. Different East Block stuff, it's really just about the dust and also like the starch. Like some of the stuff, like it comes stiff as a board, and you wash it and it's fine. I don't know what happened to it while it was like sitting in multiple warehouses. And then a lot of like European stuff, they do a good job with washing it, so it smells very much like whatever their super industrial detergent is at
surprising.
the time.
I expected it to smell like shit.
Well, so my favorite smell when it comes to that is Flecktarn, or just ain't German stuff. So I describe it as a mix of chlorine, vanilla, and toothpaste. Wow. That's their detergent.
Those are your tasting notes.
Yeah, those are
Flecktarn.
Yeah, give it a nose.
And then like with the Eastern Bloc stuff, you get a lot of like the really like vapory oils and rubbers and plastics. You get like a lot of that petroleum smell from a lot of the Eastern European stuff. We actually found out later that some of them were like treated with like cancer causing chemicals and things like that. Like a lot of they just didn't care about like the East Germany,
good
especially.
old days.
They're like, they're going to die anyway.
Yeah.
And we found out because one of our suppliers started putting like Prop 65 stickers on like clothing and stuff like that was East German. And we were like, what do you mean it causes cancer? And they're like, yeah.
Dude, I see those on everything to the point where I actually look straight through them.
No, me too. I was about to say.
I mean, if it's going to California, everything causes cancer. But if it's going other places, then it's worth a check. I remember now, actually, as Asher says that, I remember back in like the early days, it'd be like, I'll have surplus cancer in 10 years, but it's 10 years now.
If we move by, we might have it. Yeah, who knows?
People at the hospital think you're like some burn pit like GWAT veteran. You're like, nah, dude, just in the surplus biz. Part of the game.
I'm just sitting right next to them while I'm having a chemotherapy.
Yeah. I breathed through the wrong Soviet filter one too many times.
Oh, fuck.
Dude, no.
Important aside too about basements and surplus while we're talking about it is I had the privilege, especially at the last SHOT Show, to learn that all of the other people that do surplus in our space, so Varu Stelika over in Finland, Americana Pipe Dream, Krushiki, they also all started in basements. So every
that tracks.
main,
like it, sounds kind of like we had Logan from Americana Pipe Dream and those boys on the show, and they said something similar. It was just like two guys with a dream, and it expanded very quickly.
We talked about our origin stories with them, and it was funny to hear like they apparently like they lined, I think, Logan's bed with so many orders he had to like dolphin dive whenever he wanted to like go into his bed to sleep and whatnot. It gets dicey. You really got to be careful with the space when you're just starting out.
Yeah. Especially in surplus. It's like one of those hoarding adjacent markets. You know what I mean? Like the surplus like very, very quickly like takes over your life in terms of like your mind, but also like physically your space. And then, everything's cool, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's another big problem. It's like, oh man, like can't get rid of this. So like you have to be careful. It does start to take over.
Yeah, it starts building to get a surplus detritus. It starts growing on the walls.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something I was curious about, was like the early KommandoStore customers, because like nowadays with like, basically every dude who owns an AR getting out in the woods and like practicing bushcraft and having an interest in having warming layers and sleeping gear and all that kind of thing, and
I wish it
there's
was
so
every dude.
much. Yeah. Like nowadays that's every dude, and like you guys were talking about being outdoorsy and stuff back then. Like what were the original K customers like? How did you reel those guys in? Were you just like, hey, we have military camping gear, and the hordes came, or like what did that look like?
Yeah, it was like it was an interesting spot because back at that time you had like Sportsman's Guide was like
Yeah,
really the big player out there. And there may be like one or two others from around that period, but there was like not much in terms of a non-boomer surplus scene. And I don't mean to be
yeah,
like too derogative about that, but like there was definitely like a legacy aspect to it. And I'm really happy to see like there's so many new faces in surplus and like a lot of enthusiasm around it. But like we were definitely when we were starting and like it was a niche interest, and we were in like the niche where those people were. Like so starting off of 4chan, starting off of K, one of the
yeah.
big things around that time was like the Stalker challenge and that sort of deal where I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that at all.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so the Stalker challenge, like basically, it was derived from the video game, which is fantastic. If you haven't played Stalker, you should play Stalker. It's Ukrainian approved. It will teach you how to shoot a 40 mil. There's a clip of a guy on the front line actually saying that. Like I learned my awesome GL with Stalker. Anyway, the Stalker challenges would be you would like kit up, and then you would go to like deliberately go to like some sort of abandoned place, uh,
Mm.
preferably like an old military base or like an abandoned children's hospital, like creepy, abandoned, rundown, and you would camp with or without a firearm in like with surplus stuff, and then you would like eat spam out of a can, or like you basically like you would LARP as Stalker in these situations, and then people would come back to K and they would post their experiences, and you'd have these threads of like, oh yeah, this weekend I went, and really it was like a lot of like young guys and kids just like wanting to like do something, have a fun time, share some stories, that sort of thing. So to kind of like characterize what it was like at that time, you had a lot of like really wild, adventurous people. Certainly a lot of passion for the surplus side of it too, because it was really dovetailed with the history.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, because it basically, because we started on K, and we're continuously posting there too. When we started, it basically gave us our close knit community of the people who were already into everything we were about and we were selling,
Yeah.
because we were into it in the similar kind of fashion. So it let us, like, while we were still really young, start somewhere in something that already was, at least for brick and mortar, it was like a dying niche. Like surplus stores had been and were kind of closing up shop when it came to like physical retail places. And then you had your giants like Sportsman's Guide, which I would say the way they sell stuff is more like they just kind of pitchfork it at you, like in huge amounts, where we like to get a little bit more like nerdy about it, to be frank, with
Yeah.
the details, right? But also being close to a community that cared about all this stuff the same way we did. We kind of knew what people would be interested in, right? Because we were just a part of the very same our very same customers, and that's how we're able to kind of like get our foothold and kind of grow our audience at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want to
appreciate
get
that.
like, I don't want to get like too like business cast about it, but like one of the things, like if somebody was asking me like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a company, what should I do? One of the biggest pieces of advice I would say is like find a community like that that's like a niche that you can interact with, and you can know what people want, and you can get feedback really quickly, and just like start small with that small group of people, because we did it unintentionally, but it worked very well for us in terms of like getting us running and like figuring out the basics. I think a lot of people get like intimidated and feel like they have to take on like this huge thing and like do everything all at once. But because we were starting with this like 200-300 people, and we started just simply by having those email conversations with them, we were able to, over time grow that into like a much bigger enterprise.
Yeah, there's a really positive environment to just get our basics down first, and then like figure out who we were in that space too from there.
Yeah.
I was the guy who was packing orders for like the first 5 years, pretty much of the company, really 4 years. And I remember I would be able to still recognize people's names from like the first year of writing business. And I'd be able to like write them notes because I'd recognize them. And actually, a lot of our original customer base we still have, and we've had to this day. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like Basil and I we'll see like the order flow coming through, and we'll see names and be like, oh, it's him,
Mhm.
right? And you click on the name, and it's like all the way back, like you can see everything. But what I was gonna say was with 4chan too. Like one of the things that you learn very quickly is like customer service. Like you have no more demanding, difficult customer than like 4chan, and like again, not to go like too into like the business advice side of things, but like one of the things that I thought was very unique about our experience is we learned very quickly that if you don't have a good product or if you're not honest in the way that you bring it to market, people will know and they'll find out and like they'll smell it. You know, even if it's not like even if you think you're really clever, like people are smarter than you, even their gut instincts are smarter than you. So like we learned very early on how to do good customer service, how to interact with people, how to do like the marketing aspect in a way that was like engaging and selling things without having to be like super salesy or like deceptive about it. And that I think kind of informed kind of what KommandoStore became. And storytelling is like a huge aspect. The historical aspect is really huge. We try to bring context to the products and like share the same passion that we have just with people and how we write it. So when we do like sales emails and things like that, one of the things that we care very deeply about is bringing the passion that we personally have to these products to like a much bigger audience of people.
Yeah, we like just bring everyone to the same nerdy like level as us, with whatever we're doing, because I mean that's where we started. Was we found it just as interesting and as engaging as everyone else posting on K, right? So we were all on the same level. So in the way that it kind of like helped us develop our tone in terms of just we like being like really transparent, talking about like everything we know about it, our like experience with whatever kit, like the history, etc. Like that's a huge part of our passion, and just trying to be really inclusive and be like bring people to that same level instead of just using smoke and mirrors or just like the top points that will kind of like mystify them and sell them on it. We like to just give everyone like the whole story.
That's kind of what I love about you guys, though. You're the end users, so you can actually be like, "Hey, this is something I'm really interested in. I'm part of this community. Therefore, other people will probably also be interested in it," as opposed to like an old dude hucking, or that guy in Vegas that tried to sell us a bunch of ammo for like $1.25 a round to go plink
Oh, that
with.
motherfucker!
I hate that
could
guy.
have
Fuck
gone
that
over the
guy.
counter and headbutt that motherfucker. I won't say what's shop,
Piece
but
of shit.
um, no, that's got to be like a real edge starting out in this space, especially being younger guys, like actually knowing what the modern day end user and what the end user is going to look like going forward, because the surplus market, with the older generation either dying off or just being too old to actually use this stuff for any practical reason anymore. Like now the younger generation having a direct thread to them being like, I know what you guys are about. I know what you guys need this for. You probably avoided buying, pallets and pallets and pallets of shit that would have, buried you, unlike someone else who didn't have that connection.
Yeah, and we walked through a lot of retail surplus places. Like they would close down and they put up signs like, "Hey, if anyone wants to come in and like buy like all of our inventory or like part of it, whatnot." So we started in the Twin Cities, so there was a lot of different shops out there. And I remember I'd walk through and I'd just see the same stuff. It'd be classic U.S. surplus items that they obviously just got stuck with, like an anchor. And it'd be you see like a lot of like the Arctic Mickey Mouse boots. See a lot of chemical suits, and then like a lot of UCP, which at the time like no one wanted.
Yeah.
The UCP revival will happen, but
It's coming.
We
I think
probably
it's
need a
already
couple more
happening.
years. You think so?
It's
little bit.
weirdly already, yeah, thanks to like die kits and stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
a little bit it's starting to happen. Like But that's
I
a
kind
whole
of
It will be
thing.
funny when it's Vogue, when it finally clicks. Everyone's like,
Fuck.
"Oh yeah, look at my inner dude."
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's the same old circle of life.
like
With it's now
Grantham and Admin
retro.
will both do a video in like a UCP fucking
Yeah.
parka, and the price will quadruple overnight.
Yeah,
That's right.
Kilo will be doing UCP drops. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I'm calling it right now.
We can text him about that. And see what
Yeah,
he
dude.
says.
They'll be like,
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
UPC prison wallet. There you go.
Yeah.
I have actually had really good luck dyeing that stuff. It's kind of like the cat bat we have at home.
Yeah. I've seen people dye it black and then also like dark green. It actually ends up working pretty good. When you do that
Dark
stuff.
green is the move. Like it, or if you want to dye it some kind of desert color, like I'm sure just breaking up the human form, like it'll work. It'll get the job done.
Yeah.
No one's
Honestly,
Business idea, just vats and vats of right dye.
we could have a whole separate podcast just on like how to dye your surplus, because that's something that we were like super into for
We've done a lot
time.
of it. Yeah.
Basil personally did like a ton of research and development, like manually with like a washing machine, and like seriously, like that could be like a 2-hour conversation just by itself.
BR here with a quick word from our newest sponsor of the show that made our first video podcast possible, the great people over at Attorneys for Freedom. Attorneys for Freedom are a real criminal defense law firm offering attorneys on retainer for legal representation in self-defense cases, and are not some insurance company or provider. This means that Attorneys for Freedom are able to cover scenarios that are often denied coverage by other programs. Self-defense scenarios such as while in gun-free zones or sensitive areas, while under the influence or on medication, scenarios where you knew your attacker, and while using any weapon in self-defense, from a firearm to a household object or otherwise. Additionally, Attorneys for Freedom will not drop you from coverage, nor will they ever ask you to pay them back. Even if you take a plea deal where you admit guilt to a criminal act, Attorneys for Freedom will not ask to recoup their fees. Attorneys for Freedom covers 100% of your attorney's fees in the event they can reasonably argue that you were acting in self-defense, and now you're facing serious felony charges. The primary key to coverage is their ability to reasonably argue self-defense in court. Nathan and I have signed up already, and you can too in no time at all. The National Self-Protection Plan is available with a one-time sign-up fee of $100 and just $35 per month after that. Family plans and annual rates are also available. Signing up via the link in the show notes or via the Seaburn Art Instagram bio link helps support the show with both your initial sign-up and every month you retain Attorneys for Freedom services. Get covered in all 50 states, support the show, and have peace of mind that should your worst day come, Attorneys for Freedom has your back. Thanks for listening, people. How's it going, lads and ladies? BR here with a quick word from the longest running sponsor of the Art and War podcast, Advanced Warfighting Solutions. AWS have been making tough as hell gear for decades right here in the US in North Carolina. Nathan, myself, and thousands of others run that gear through the ringer and trust our lives to it, whether that's LARPing in the woods or dragging kit through war zones. AWS manufactures many great packs, pouches, plate carriers, and our personal favorite, the SMU Operator Belt. A set-and-forget gun belt that crushes in build quality, capability, and excellent feedback from its many users. We are tough on our gear here at Art and War, and the SMU takes that treatment in its stride. Though already at a sweet price point, you can knock $10 more off your SMU belt with the code ARTandWar10 at awsin.com. The code and link to the AWS website can be found in the show description. Thanks for listening, now let's get back to the show.
No, that is something I wanted to hit on actually, was the green zone DPM.
Oh hell yeah.
When I saw that, like the first time I saw that, I think I saw it after you guys had basically sold out all the sizes that would have fit me. I was like, fuck, if I'd have known about this, I would have been a sucker for it. I am a bitch for DPM and Desert DPM.
Yeah, it's tough with the dye stuff because you're working with, stuff that's already hard to get as is. Not as it just surplus, but you need to have items that are primarily cotton in their construction, right? Because that's the stuff that you can dye easily. You can technically dye poly stuff if you have like an industrial like pressure cooker or something like that, but want to stay away from that noise. And then in the dye, you have like different yields and whatnot, because there's always a little bit of variance. With Green Zone was really cool because we were just testing out a bunch of different colors with DPM. So desert color DPM by default is a very light color. So you have lots of options in terms of where you want to take it. because we did what we called pretty patties from SpongeBob. So we literally did like a billion different shades. Even did a pink one, pink, maroon, green, blue. They were going all over the place. And then when we were trying to find out, like, hey, what for this dye project, like what color, do we want to do? And we're all leaning towards green because that made sense in terms of the color space. But that's when we accidentally found out that it actually had a historical, like predated, like prevalence, like it actually had been done before intentionally, especially when for different troops that were deployed in Afghanistan. So they were specifically in a southern region. What was it called again, Asher?
Oh, fuck.
It just so the region completely escaped my mind, but it's where basically
they're
all
in a river valley.
Yeah, it's a river valley where all the poppy farms are. So all the opium's there. So it's really, really messed up. It's really dangerous. And surprising to some people's presumptions, there's actually a lot of green there because of the river. So they're wearing full tan and they're actually in a mixed kind of vegetation environment. So a bunch of the guys, when they could, took to hand dyeing their own uniforms with different amounts of success. You can actually see in the photos, it ended up turquoise because dyeing is sometimes non-linear. You think like, oh yeah, I use the red paint, it becomes red, right? But sometimes, depending on the composition, it doesn't work that way, right? For example, if it's a blend of cotton and polyester, the polyester isn't going to change, so you have to take into account the color of the polyester in mix and whatnot. So what a lot of the British troops ended up with was like this turquoise and tan thing, which, it would have broken up their silhouette, but it wasn't really green. So that was the other cool thing about doing green zone is it's what they would have wanted.
Yeah.
If they had the choice.
There were a couple weird contracts as well. Like there was a couple UK companies that did like a small batch and sent it over, but they also had some color control issues, and you just get, it wouldn't look green. So we were really happy to do it properly, and like the history there was it was quite cool. It was one of those field expedient things where it's like, we need to fix this or we're going to get zapped. Because if you look at desert DPM and you look at how lush that river valley area in Afghanistan was, you were standing out. It was a really bad time if you were walking around in that stuff.
Yeah.
That is actually
it's funny
so freaking cool.
Yeah, that, like when the Brits first got there, they were like in a mix of like regular DPM from patrolling Ireland and all that, and then and they had like
they were
some
doing the
desert
blend
DPM.
too.
Yeah, and then when they went fully to like the desert tan desert DPM, then you get deployments like that, and it's like, oh, that fucking sucks, guys. Like, wait, go back.
But it was just that one area of
Yeah.
Afghanistan too. Like virtually the rest of Afghanistan, you're fine. You're blending into the environment perfectly. But
Yeah. Have you guys seen what the Brits do for OP4 camo these days?
no, what do they do?
They do blue DPM.
Really?
Yeah, it's a somewhat modern change they've done, and it's so fucking weird. I'm like, I can't imagine the contract coming through to whoever it was and just being like, what the fuck, why?
We've seen some stuff like that actually in surplus. Like I actually know there's a couple really weird pieces for the Austrian military, the Bundesheer, I think is how you pronounce it, where it was just completely turquoise uniforms. So it was their full like M65 clone stuff, but just bright turquoise. And we got those in like ones or twos. And I remember when those came in, it was like really confusing. It's like, what happened? Did it just get like really like sun bleached or something like that? But it must have been for some training exercise. Kind of a similar take,
Yeah.
That's super interesting. I love these, like the heritage behind everything, and like the thought that goes into each. This is cool. I like the history.
It's like talking with the our Zuma friends over at Americana Pipe Dream. They're going on about Irish DPM and how it's like a serious MOD issue for them. But like
for any of that to get sold in the open market, it's kind of like reverse ITAR or their version.
Or now
of it.
Arktis is like, hey, look at our Irish DPM collection. So it's like,
oh, they love flexing that stuff.
Yeah.
Is Arktis making that themselves? I know you work with those guys.
Yeah.
How did that end up happening?
Oh man, I mean that's.
We keep on asking loaded questions by accident.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not at all loaded. I mean, we love Arktis. Arktis. There's a whole lot to say about Arktis because they're completely unknown to the U.S. market. Maybe our customer base knows a little bit more because we've done a little bit of evangelizing, but we're extremely excited. I know because we're kind of talking with them about this, all the rest of that. Arktis is making an entry into the U.S. market very soon.
Yeah, we saw that shot, Arktis, USA.
Yep. And what's really fantastic about that is the pricing, and at least after 2024, the availability will be there, and you'll have kit that you can actually afford to use hard, and it's not, super precious like your Leaf parka or something like that. Like you can afford to actually like use it hard and run it hard, but it's all near compliant, which even some of the big names, like I've been really surprised. There's been stuff where I've bought this and I've paid a premium for this and I'm expecting it to be near, and it's not. All the Arktis stuff is near compliant, mostly by default, unless it's specifically said otherwise. And the price point is often like 40-50% less than your Patagucci, your Arc'teryx, or your Crye stuff. And one of the things that I quite like as well is like Arktis is very publicly friendly with their customers and open to advice, open to feedback from professionals. So unlike kind of like the HK style of marketing, I won't do anybody in the clothing industry because I don't want to get in any hot water, but unlike the HK style of marketing where it's kind of like, we're cool, buy it, screw you, pay the tax. Arktis is very much kind of value and performance first. And that's what they lead with. So that's really exciting to see some of that coming to the US. And I think people will be extremely pleasantly surprised with not only the existing line when it comes in like April or something like that this year, but also some of the stuff that's in the pipeline that'll be released towards the end of the year. Like they're doing a whole PCU type system, which is it's going to be fantastic from what I've seen. There's a lot of stuff there. The other thing from like the surplus side that's really exciting about Arktis is they're like camophilic. Like they love all the different camos because they've been doing all the like special snowflake European countries for years.
Yeah.
So they have like every camouflage under the sun, and they will roll it out and they'll do like limited releases and all the rest of that. So you're not like, as a surplus guy, like I'm really excited to see like M90 and things like that just don't exist anywhere else. And you're telling me I can have a full uniform in this stuff and it's not going to kill me to buy it.
Yeah, I think also just more than surplus people like seeing more than just multicam.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like, well, yeah, multicam or coyote. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like that's it, right? And they like to have fun. I mean, as we were talking about the Irish DPM, right? They're not afraid to do any goofy camo under the sun on any of their products, which is
I imagine
fun.
the Irish government doesn't like that very much, and it kind of makes me like them.
Well, I mean, Arktis is a little bit vulnerable there because like they do have part of their they have 2 sites in the UK and one of them is in Northern Ireland. So like
which makes it extra interesting to me. Yeah. But
they also hold a lot of the contracts to actually supply Irish DPM to Ireland proper, so maybe they could have passed there. I'm not too sure, but to your original question, you said like, how did we find out about them? What's the relationship like? We met them at SHOT Show in 2023, and
I love that.
Because we're in surplus, right? It's something where we've always looked to Europe and some of these vendors because that's kind of our specialty. We do some US surplus, but a lot of it is imports and overseas. So we've always kept tabs on a lot of the European companies like UF Pro and NoArm, and I'm mispronouncing it, but there's a bunch of people out there that we really get nerdy about and are passionate about. And when we saw them, like their booth listing at SHOT Show, we're like, oh my God, we have to visit them. And it was a tiny booth in 2023. It's literally like one of those one table booths in the middle of nowhere. And we were just thrilled to meet them and thrilled that they were there. And it's, oh my God, it's the CEO. And like, here's the product designer and they're here and we can talk to them. So we had like a very nerdy, like maybe an hour at the Arktis booth. And they were slept on by like pretty much everybody else at SHOT Show that year, except for their existing European vendors, because they do so many like SF contracts and stuff like that in Europe. So it was literally just like, some guy from Europe would like walk up and have a conversation about a contract. And like, we were like the only Americans hanging out at the booth for the period that we were there. So we built that relationship then. We helped them liquidate some. We helped them liquidate. They had a little issue with Crye. We can talk publicly about it, but it's really.
I'm so
funny.
curious. I'm so curious.
Yeah. So they made one of the things we connected on too, because we always try to ask like every company, even non-surplus companies, like, hey, if you have any weird stuff that you just don't know what to do with, we know how to sell weird things, and we can make a deal here, right? So cool. They had just gotten in trouble with Crye because they had a camera called OptiView, which Crye just decided, okay, it looks way too similar to multicam, so they hit them up with a cease and desist, and
which in full fairness to Crye, was plausible.
Yeah.
It was plausible. It was close. I'm not going to say anything, but you could see why they might have been upset.
Yeah, no, it was pretty close. So they got hit with a cease and desist, and basically were told, hey, you can't make any more fabric. The fabric you have made, you can make it into products and you can sell them, but you have to stop by end of the year, essentially. And so that's where we came in. We're like, oh, okay, well, we know how to sell like anything under the sun as long as it's in this space. So let's try it out. So we were able to take on all of their OptiView contracts, except for like a small handful they just wanted to keep for their own retail site over in Europe and the UK. And we just did lots of waves of just kind of selling that out right before the deadline. And we tried to be as clever about it as possible to give everyone the chance to like sell, like get as much of it as possible. So the last sales event we had is we wrapped it up into something called OptiBall, where you just put in your size and you just get a random item at the final like discounted price. And we did pretty good. Save a couple extra smalls, we were able to liquidate all of it with them.
Yeah.
That's
and
cool. Just coming in and making things happen for those companies with, like you said, weird shit they can't move.
Yeah, and the time pressure was really huge for them. Mm-hmm. Like, if you put yourself in Arktis shoes, where you have to like buy that inventory 6 months in advance, and then you find out like, oh, it's going to arrive, and then you have 3 months to get rid of all of it, or Crye is going to be angry, right? So we were able to kind of get ahead of that, and we started selling it based off of what they had and the samples they had and stuff like that, so that when it came off the factory line, it was going straight to our customers.
Yeah, straight to our customers. Yeah, and it was cool because it was like a really unique way to just like instantly connect with everyone at Arktis, like on a complete one-to-one level. But also it was just really fun to explore their product line in a really methodical, like piece by piece way, because we had to become really familiar with every SKU they had made using the OptiView. So in terms of just kind of like knowing the whole layout of everything they do and the way that they build a lot of their items was really cool.
Yeah. And it opened the door for like we do some OEM stuff with Arktis now. So they're making Smurf rig for us.
Stuff. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool. I saw they're doing modern Gorkas. I imagine now, after that whole thing, they've probably licensed the rights to use actual multicam.
Yes. Yeah. So actually, I should clarify this. Arktis and Crye are on great terms. Mm-hmm. Yes. Arktis was invited to the Crye party. Like, basically.
It's like getting invited to the birthday party. Like, okay, I guess you can come to my birthday party.
Yeah.
You're cool, I guess.
Yeah. So Arktis is bringing a lot of genuine multicam products to market. They actually worked with Crye to develop and 1947, which if you know, but they worked with 1947 to license a multicam print on a new fabric that they're bringing, which is a mechanical stretch NICO. And I don't want to get too nerdy, but Basil and I are very nerdy about this stuff. So
I love that. It means that they're actually that's a pretty big move for Crye to say, okay, well, you can print it on your material. So in terms of just like big picture, that's like a pretty significant handshake between the two companies.
Yeah.
So as funny as the whole circumstance was, there's no actual bad blood between Arktis and Crye at this point. But the whole process was very funny. I think Crye has kind of over the years, because we got C&D'd once by Crye a while back as well. We had a Gorka that was like, it was the Russian knockoff multicam, and we didn't realize,
which is really bad, by the way. Like as a knockoff of multicam, it is the Optiview. I mean, you look at it and be like, okay, that's pretty suspect, right? But it was Russian deer moss is what they called it. It's I don't know. It's like if you squinted at multicam at like a Polaroid photo of multicam, that's what it kind of looks like. But yeah, they got even a little frustrated at that.
Your camo is a vague baby poop color. I do not like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
But they're always cordial. Like as credit to the Crye legal department, it's a very much like they have the stick, and as a multi-billion-dollar company, I'm sure they're not afraid to use the stick, but they are very friendly, and they try to offer you the alternative of licensing stuff and going genuine, which I think is really something to applaud, especially in this industry. Like people are so, especially in America, so litigious. Like quick to like do a lawsuit, and to instead kind of like welcome somebody in and kind of like say like, here's how you can go legit, and have that olive branch is really cool, especially for a company as big as Crye. Like they don't need to do that. They could just blow people up.
Like came up on the show before, the Glock. Like we'll see what happens with Glock soon. Now old Gaston is unfortunately, rest in peace, I guess.
He's in a better place.
But we've heard a lot of stories about them just handing out lawsuits and C&Ds like no one's business, and not being as cordial about it. I remember
being firm.
Firm. Back in the 2012 K days, I bought a bunch of knockoff multicam just to see, what the fuss was about. Before it was, God, I think this was even before that. It was like 2010 or something. And it arrived pink. All the Chinese multicam was pink for some fucking reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen that in some knockoffs. You get like a pink tint or like a green tint to some stuff.
It's weird. I haven't seen the green tint, but I do remember all of my stuff was tinted vaguely pink. It looked very bad.
Nice. Yeah. Fuck yeah, China.
Yeah. But they tried. They tried their best, okay?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. I mean, Basil and I we've seen it all, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, before we got into like the dye stuff, there's so much from like that crazy era. So like the washing machine was in the basement. So like Basil was using his family washing machine to do like the dye tests. But like we were talking a little bit before the show. Like there's so many like weird like little like one-off things from that time. Like so like very quickly after we started the business, like I went off to college and Basil stayed in Minnesota. So I was overseas with like an 8-hour time difference. Basil was back like doing it, so we kept the business running even with that.
It definitely set up like our specialties at the time, at least for when we were just running it as like a 2-man show. So I was doing all the warehousing, I was doing like all the sorting, appraising the items, right, figuring out how they worked, how we'd serve them up on the site. I was doing all the photography, a little bit of some of like the internal like graphic design as well as customer support, and like building the site. And then Ashur was doing a lot of like web development, purchasing, talking to a lot of different people, customer service as well. But we had like definitely like a split because I was on the ground, he was in the sky. Yeah. But one cool thing about that was there was always one Ivan awake 24/7. So it helped us keep on top of things.
It was definitely at the scale where like 2 people could still do everything, but it led to like really weird stuff. Like this was at a period where you had to manually process every order individually. So we had to literally like go through, and
it's like an 8-click adventure.
Yeah. With some lag. So you have like maybe like a 5-minute per order, or maybe a little bit less, but like a several minute per order, 8 clicks. You have to wait for the browser, all the rest of that. So there'd be this whole workflow of, the day's orders or the week's orders. You would need to spend like an hour prepping the labels to get them ready, and like going through all that and like canceling the orders that people like didn't want and all the rest of that, because none of it was automated. And as a result of that, I would be like doing my shift or whatever, and I'd hit print on the labels, and it would be like over the cloud, like printing. And Basil had the printer in his bedroom.
Yeah, dude.
So at 3 a.m, Basil would be like asleep, and then the label, the thermal printer would like print like 100 labels.
If anyone's heard a ZP450 go off, like it's kind of loud. So yeah, it definitely taught us to get like organized, in a sense, being like so apart from each other, which was also pretty useful because most of our contacts and most of surplus is from overseas too.
Yeah.
So it's also nice having Ashur a little bit closer to some of the people over there. But yeah, it created some interesting challenges. But dude, let's call them thermal label jump scares.
Yep.
Oh my god, yeah.
Was it difficult being disciplined throughout those like early days, kind of like through college, but also running like a on a what's the word? Basically on the rise kind of business, like just the two of you in the early days.
Like keeping up with it and like our
yeah
personal lives?
like making sure you're actually like like you said, doing shifts. Like was it that kind of regimented, or was it more just like shit needs doing, or like what did that look like for you guys?
Well, definitely having like the close community as our audience. When we did make mistakes, we learned them really fast, right? I think a big part of just running any business is learning how to fail fast. At the beginning, because when it was still just kind of small game and just like what we were interested in, other than stepping on each other's toes, not too many problems. But as things started to get a little more serious in the end, we did have to figure out how to get organized pretty quick, because it really sucks when you need to work with someone but they're asleep and you have to like wait for them to wake up, and you lose that window, and there's something urgent and whatnot. So just in terms of like the communication, but then also the delegation of what we work on, we had to figure that out.
Yeah.
Do you mind if we ask why you were overseas?
My school was.
Yeah, he was going to college
Yeah.
because once again, like the company, in just a short couple months, just like kind of happened to both of us, and we both had a completely different conception of what our futures were going to be, right? Like the running KommandoStore, like I did not ever think about that ever happening to me. Never thought of myself as like a business owner or an entrepreneur. So I was planning to go to college in Minnesota, and Ashur was going overseas over in England, or the United Kingdom.
Poor bastard.
For college.
It was up north, so I was in Scotland.
He can take it. All right. I can't, but he can take it, so he's fine. I did college myself for a quarter. And I decided to leave because I was a C student in high school, mostly because I was really challenged with writing. And so I'd finally gone to college, and for the first time was an A student. Out of 99, like forever, first time ever. And I was really proud of that. And then one night, we got our first ever, we had launched a sale, and we got more than 100 orders for the first time ever. And I stayed up the whole night packing, literally until the sun rose. And I like set all the packages out on my front porch with a note for my postal, for the postwoman to come pick them up, because I was still just handing it off to her instead of like calling it pickups or something like that. And then I found out that basically I had missed multiple finals because I thought they were thought the deadline was one more day than it was. And I watched the all turn to D's. And it meant a lot to me that I like gotten out of the like high school and was starting to do something that I planned to be interested in, which just computer science. And I had to make a decision, like, okay, well, what am I going to do about this, right? Because can I keep up with two of these things? What would I rather do? So I decided to go personally meet with the business instead. Mr. Ashur over here, I'm not going to try and put too many words in his mouth. He's definitely a lot more, how do I put it? A little more organized and less.
I would go that far.
Well, Ashur somehow Ashur made it work, but also Ashur being a big part of like the web developer and the infrastructure for like a lot of what we were doing when it came to our production and our hosting and everything else like that, because that was conducive to what he was going to go study. Yeah. It worked for him. He was also able to keep up with it.
Well, so it is interesting. I mean, that early time, like you would ask, like, how do you like have the discipline to do it? We were both like there was nobody else, so we were both directly accountable to each other. Like
Yeah.
if one person stopped, the sale wouldn't happen, right? Or like Basil stops packing, like well, the company's over. If I'm not writing like the sales email or like updating the website or whatever, like it doesn't work. So that really helped. I don't think there was ever a point where like we were really like thinking about like, oh, this is like, I need to like buckle down and like get this done. It was always, we were so focused on like what needed to be done that was never even like a thing to think about. It was more like the organization side of it. Cause we were both, I think, really very early on realized like, hey, this is something that we want to do. This is something worth trying. So because we were both directly accountable to each other, we found ways to make it work. And that I think is like another thing that like a lot of people, if they're just starting something out, it's impossible or it's really hard to do stuff like this if you're not accountable to anybody else. So if you're like a solo entrepreneur or something like that, like, oh my God, like good luck. Like that's really, really tough. Yeah, like I just don't. So because there was both of us and we had a division of labor and all the rest of that, it worked. Part of the other thing that kind of made it work is like at school, I didn't have a social life at all. So what I would do is I would go to my classes, and then at 5 p.m. is basically the start of the workday in the States. So I would do my classes, and then like at breaks and whatever, do my assignments and homeworks and things like that. Maybe I do a little bit in the evening or whatever. But basically, as soon as Basil was up and running, I would do a 9 to 5 in my evening. So I would end work at 11 p.m. So I would just do the school day, do like whatever I could with my like assignments, and then I would do the KommandoStore shift.
Which is insane. I could never do that. I just know that.
That's badass, dude.
Huge respect for that, because I don't think I'd be able to do that as
It's a miracle there is a weekly show.
But I mean, in the end, like, you know, were my grades perfect? No, by no means. But like, I did manage to like make it work. I did manage to keep up. And definitely, I think one of the things that Basil and I learned a lot later is like, you know, once you have something and there's momentum behind it, you don't have to do everything yourself. And that was like a big thing where like once we started seriously looking at hiring and like taking skills that we had developed and trying to like train that into other people or finding other people that we could trust with that was a huge step. Because for a while it really felt like
it was just us.
Yeah, there was the urgency of like, if it's not us, it's
no one.
Yeah,
and none of us wanted to see it fail. So really drove us through a lot of really difficult times. Like it has been a long time. I mean, it's been, you know, like 9-8 years, but I don't remember a whole lot about 2014, which is the last year in the basement. And you know, just because it's been a while, but also I was incredibly, I found out towards the end before I got out, vitamin D deprived. So, and also I found out that you're not supposed to drink like 10 to 15 cups of coffee a day. It's not good. Most people, you're supposed to stop at like 400 milligrams, and each cup has like 90 milligrams. So, but I remember, because it's all in the basement. That was like where I was on a daily basis, sun up to sundown. There's no windows; those got blocked out by surplus. So
he says that, but he's not joking. Yeah. It was literally floor to ceiling.
Yeah, I got tested, and I don't remember what the units they do for this, but average amount of vitamin D levels in someone is 30 to 80 units, and I came out at like an 8 or a 10.
Oh, holy shit! I mean, like, there's no sun in Scotland, but still, fuck.
Yeah. So I after that, I definitely got on vitamin D supplements. You got to take 10,000 a day. Ashur was already doing it. That's actually where I got the idea from, because I was like, dude, I am so fatigued. Like, I'm so burnt out. Like, what's going on? And that was one thing to try out, right? Yeah, it's huge.
You guys have a warehouse with like skylights now, or?
We got windows.
Yeah,
we got windows lit, and we take lunch outside, which is cool. We got picnic tables. They fold flat. And everyone just carries them out the back door, and we set them up. And whenever we can, we have lunch outside.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that for my work too. I'm a graphic designer by trade, so I spend way too much time inside. And I'll come in when it's like a little bit dark, and I'll leave when it's dark again. I'm like, fuck! I need to see the sun.
Oh, dude, I feel that. It's been like, This winter's been super sedentary for me. I've just been inside either, doing the recordings or related things, or mostly my work, which rarely has me leave a chair or a couch. And I
Yeah,
just feel like shit all of the
dude.
time.
The
It's
winter
only recently.
depressies, they're real.
Oh
Yeah, but
yeah, seasonal
Vegas,
depression.
like SHOT
Seriously.
Show,
Mhm.
how we had to walk around in the sun. I came back and like the dopamine high lasted 3 days. It's 100%. It was like suddenly a little bit of exercise and a little bit of sunlight that did wonders.
That is really funny to hear anyone say, "Yeah, Vegas was so regulating for me." Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Like-
because like I think I had like 10 drinks across the week. Like,
yeah, same.
like, and we were walking, we were in the sun.
Yeah, we ate weirdly well. We didn't really drink. I'm not really a big casino person. Like last year, I went a little ham, and
Did the Vegas experience.
I did the Vegas experience once. Like I did the whole like get drunk at the Circle Bar and stuff,
Yeah.
and like people were buying you drinks and all that, and like immediately, oh shit, I have gout.
Oh,
Yeah, no, it sucked. But this year was kind of the opposite. It's like drink very little, eat as well as you can for it being Vegas.
Yeah.
And we walked like 50 miles or something stupid.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah.
And
Everyone has
a lot
their
of it
comfy
was in the
shoes on.
sunlight. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, dude. I went to Ross, bought some like nice shoes with good arch support, and they blew out within 3 days. Like the sole was falling off. So I don't think they were actually nice.
Yeah, nice shoes from Ross. All right.
Yeah, but that little bit of sunlight and the little bit of exercise, holy shit! And like it makes a difference.
It does. Get
It
outside,
does.
guys. Touch grass.
I would 100% recommend anybody who's going to SHOT Show their first time, like you should plan to have those 8 hours of sleep and
Yeah.
plan to stay hydrated and eat regularly and like all of those things, because the experience of SHOT Show, irrespective of Vegas, is already really disorienting and like
It's super overstimulating.
yeah,
Oh my
it's
god.
stressful on your body. And then to add that to Vegas, which is a magnifier for all of those things, like all the industry, like the veterans, like most of the people like Roy at Weapon Outfitters and stuff like that, like he's
I
like,
love
yeah,
Roy.
I just go home, like I just go home afterwards and I
He was
sleep.
telling us, "Oh, you
Yeah.
crazy kids."
Yeah. And
Roy was like our SHOT Show dad.
He was.
yeah, and he's right. Like all the people who've been doing this for years are like, it's not worth kind of your health or sanity. Like maybe if you have to get it out of your system 1 year, like go super hard. But like the sanest strategy, like just pretend like your parents are like watching over you and like you have a bedtime, and you will thank yourself. You won't get sick afterwards. You won't feel like garbage. You won't like it's so much better just to like take it because it's enough. It's enough of an event by itself.
And Vegas is intentionally designed to keep you from your bedtime. It's
Yes, it is.
it's the layout is intentionally meant to confuse you. They pump you full of extra oxygen and bright lights, so you don't know what time it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, dude.
Vegas is Night City. It is 100% this weird like cyberpunk dystopian hellscape. The hotel that B.R and I stayed at, right across the street, I went into it was like a little convenience store, and homeboy was there wearing like an Amazon tack vest with a Glock and a cross draw holster. And it was the most like I am an NPC in a video game right now moment. Like that city's not real, and no one can convince me it is real. I think the whole
Everything
entire
there
thing was
feels
just-
like it's everything there feels like it's bolted on, and then when something's not bolted on there, it's just like flat desert and some trash.
yeah. It is a lot of fun, but I think you're absolutely right. Like the desire to go and see all the parties and do all the things, it's a lot less the second time around. I think it's going to be even less the third time around.
Yeah.
But
Inshallah.
yeah, no, I think the takeaway from this entire like offshoot train of thought is go get fucking sun and go for a walk.
You do not get vitamin D through windows. Doesn't work. The
You don't?
sunlight. No, you don't.
You don't.
No,
Oh,
it filters
shit.
out the UVB you need.
Yeah.
So
I did not actually know that.
That
gotta go
applies
outside.
to newer car windows as well. So if you have an old vehicle, it's not the case, but like the new ones, they all have a UV blocker built in.
Holy shit, I did not know that. Well, yeah, definitely go for a walk.
Yeah.
I mean, on that note about being vitamin D deficient, I was gonna say European surplus, but I guess for you guys it's not just Europe, it's the Middle East, it's all over the place. Like, how did you guys make the jump from buying up American auctions to like going further abroad, and kind of you guys mentioned some misadventures that came with that.
Oh god, a lot of misadventures.
Yeah, I was about to say which misadventure.
Yeah. So our first like gambit into surplus was with all the U.S. stuff, right? So it was with those auctions, but after kind of our start, it very quickly became everywhere else actually, and that was something that we kind of to this day still take kind of pride in, is everywhere else in the U.S. because the auctions were a bit pedantic to keep up with sometimes, and we had just started to discover our first wholesalers, which was kind of exposing us to a lot of European surplus especially. But then at the same time, because we were posting on K, we also know what kind of people we're looking at. So like our exposure to like, a lot of the camos are there, Fleck-Tar and Alpenflage, etc. Kind of drove us to like, okay, well, that's way more interesting and also smells better. Like we should go find out about that, right? And so, like level one, starting out is, like I said before, is there's a few wholesalers in the US that all they do is they just kind of, at least at the time, all they did was just import a lot of stuff from just auctions that happen over there. But, being kind of conniving, smart little surplus gremlins, we eventually tried to see how we could get around that. And really the answer to the question, which is like, how do you find all your stuff, is there's just so many different friends, other companies, contacts you just make just by sending paper airplanes over, right? Just by trying to talk to people, sending emails to really sketchy random, companies over in South Africa, right? So over time, we've just kind of built like just kind of a natural network of just individuals, whole companies, there's even a guy we have in South Africa, and he sends us Christmas presents, which is awesome. I love that dude. Boss. Yeah. But being in the U.S., U.S. surplus was obviously, especially coming off of seeing a lot of the old brick and mortar places closing down, was obviously not as interesting or as competitive at the time. So, it's where we started specializing in like a lot of Europe, Austria, Germany, and then South Africa, and then eventually actually Russia. We made a friend in Russia as well to do a lot of like Gorka suits and stuff from over there.
I mean, that's got to be like a lot of fun, just because I have a morbid curiosity with like just sketchy people, sketchy places. Yeah. It's fascinating to me. So to actually be like, yeah, fuck it, maybe we'll do business with this guy that may or may not be a Nigerian prince. Fuck it.
I love that.
There were Nigerian princes too.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, not literally, but metaphorically. Metaphorically, yeah. There were some scammers, right? And so luckily we never really got burnt too bad. We always had some out, or you work up like a decent term, and if they agree to it, then it's less risky, right? Or you just use PayPal goods and services, We actually, I remember a long time ago, we started a small little venture with KommandoStore where we called it surplus spelunking. And the premise was like, hey, there's some really shady people out there, but if they weren't shady, it'd be cool, right? And so it was like a specific sales event where like it was understood like, hey, this might not work out, and if it doesn't work out, you're all going to get a refund, but just know that we're trying this out. We'll see if it works. And it didn't work for one item, and then we're like, okay, well that was dumb. Let's just not do this ever again. It was for Russian night vision. It was one of those tanker helmets with the really old style.
Oh, the 53s or whatever they're called.
Yeah. So the way the guy did it is,
and some of the 2-liter size night vision scopes as well. I forget the designation on them, but they were like a Russian-Afghan war era. I'm sure you've seen them before, the old Starlight scopes.
Yeah. So sent the guy the money, PayPal, goods and services. He sent us like 21 tracking numbers. One of them was real. The thing he was taking photos of, and the other 20 were fake. I'm like, okay. And we just cha-ching, got our money back. That was kind of it. But outside of that, we haven't really gotten like burnt or scammed too much.
There's the Italian job.
The Italian job. Oh,
are we ready to go public with the Italian job?
Yeah, we could talk about it. Yeah,
that's a big one.
Yeah, okay. So
dealing with
this is actually an exclusive. We've never publicly talked about.
Yeah, we haven't talked about this for a while. So, are either of you familiar with Mateba?
Mateba, like the revolvers?
Yep. This like the slide action, like funky Ghost in the Shell revolvers, right? So, really cool. they had been gone, I think, since the 90s, but they're back in business and they were trying to like into the U.S. market. And so we had reached out to them like, hey, we're an importer. We have all the paperwork. Like, let's work something out. And it was pretty positive. We even were talking to TFB at the time about it. News article, which we still get some notifications sometimes to this day about.
Yeah.
So we took some pre-orders. We were working out the deal. But then it started to kind of feel kind of funny. And it's the kind of thing where like, the first delay or two, kind of makes sense. And there's been photos alongside it, but then you get to the third and you're like, huh? And then you get to the fourth and things stop adding up. So what had happened is, we'd find out later is that a guy who had actually even, I think, gone to jail for a little bit for a Ponzi scheme, like an $8 million Ponzi scheme in another country, had bought Mateba and like all the old tooling, and a couple like revolvers that were still around. And he was using the old revolver parts to like set up for new pictures to send to us. And he was just completely playing us.
Yeah. So he faked the CNC stuff because he would have like the parts. And the whole thing with Mateba is like, I'm not sure, how informed you guys are of like the history of all the rest of that, but they were like hand fit revolvers. So his pitch was like, oh, well, we've cracked how to CNC these and like bring them back. Right. Which of course, looking back at it is like kind of a fantasy now, because if you know the guns, you know how intricate they were. But he used the spare parts from their old production stuff and the spare guns that they had to say like, oh, look, we're producing now. And he sent all these photos. And part of what made it so convincing is he actually did file the export paperwork, and went through like the whole process with us, even on the Italian side. But he just never sent the gun. So we had paid the production deposit, paid the majority of it. And he actually tried to get us to pay all of it up front. And it was kind of after we were like, okay, but like we need to have the paperwork finished and some of this other stuff, where he just kind of like dropped off the face of the earth. And we did actually try to open a legal case.
We did, yeah,
in Italy.
That's hard internationally.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. So it is actually still ongoing because we're still working with it, which really was to set a precedent that had been filed, knowing that nothing would probably ever come of it.
Yeah.
We're still working with the lawyers over there. We actually have a friend over in Italy who also helped us when we were establishing the deal. And I remember there was a red flag early on when Mateba had their website with like some of their like local dealers. And we had our Italian friend call around and just kind of follow up like, hey, want to talk about like this company you've worked with? They listed you, Mateba, like, have you done business with them? How much? Just kind of the usual, normal, polite, just checking references, right? It's just checking references. And what was weird is we then heard back from Mateba on it because multiple of them, as soon as they got off the phone with our friend, called Mateba. We're actually like really suspicious about it. Like, hey, these guys just were asking about you. What's going on, right? So I don't know if they were in on it too, or it was just really weird to put references up if obviously it's fraudulent. Probably it's all people he knew.
Just hoping that you wouldn't check.
Yeah.
And there were a couple other companies. There was one in Canada and one in the States a couple years prior to us that we found out kind of after the fact had also been kind of taken for a ride by this guy. But essentially, it was like, hey, here's this really, awesome product that we're going to bring back to market. We just need, a deposit to start manufacturing on it. And all the invoices and everything else was like done very professionally. The guy who was buying the company was, a business person who knew how to do that. It's just that he realized that for this particular international type of wire fraud, there was basically no enforcement. And he kind of hit this middle ground where it was like, it was enough to be really significant for him personally, but really hard to prosecute over, like a mid 5-figure type of fraud case that's international, like cross border. If it was like one state over, that's something where, you could get it done. But the international aspect of it made it, pretty scot-free for him to pursue that. The other thing that we realized when things started going wrong was like the serial numbers on some of the guns were like the new production stuff, because we were asking like, hey, can you show us photos of like our batch, because we're really excited to share it with our customers, that sort of thing. He took photos and then we compared it to other photos that were on the internet from years prior, and the serials matched up. So it was like the same gun. He had just like put it in a new
Yeah,
context.
you're just reassembling parts to make it look different every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy
And
shit.
we had our Italian friend. He was in northern Italy, and Mateba's was located in the south. We had him travel all the way south just to check out their business address. It was just an abandoned building.
This is super
Nice.
nerdy, but I always assumed Mateba was Japanese. I don't know why. I think I saw it in an anime. That this is the nerdiest sentence I've ever said in this show.
I'm pretty sure it's in Ghost in the Shell. The one guy who has like the least
That's the
amount
one,
of
yeah.
cybernetic implants. Yeah, that I'm pretty sure that's what he's using. Also, it has like the syllable thing going on, Mateba, right? So you could derive it and think that it was Japanese.
I feel a lot less nerdy now that you not only knew what anime it was, but you knew what character. I feel a lot less alone.
Like nailed it without like a second of trying to find it. He's just like, oh yeah, no, exactly.
Well, I
this.
mean, I did say, as we said earlier, we did start on K. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the things that made it cool
Naturally.
to us, was that like, it was the crazy revolver from Ghost in the Shell. It was real,
Yeah.
right? And that thing was like super retro future. Just the way the action worked was it was just nutty. So I'm just really sad it didn't work out. But we got all the customers that did the pre-orders taken care of, and closed that up. So now it's just a never-ending kind of lawsuit we're just trying to file, like across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Was that the first time you guys tried to get into firearms?
I mean, at that point we were already night stealers, I think, which is
Oh, okay.
also like very, very much like under the radar. But somehow we managed to like get that relationship going. But honestly, we've never really done a lot of business. Like the margins, this is something that I'm sure like a lot of the professional people will tell you, like, unless you're manufacturing the guns, your margins as a dealer are really bad.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people in this industry, like your typical gun shop, like they're making maybe $90 on a Glock. And if you think about the time it takes to fill out a 4473 and the employee that has to shepherd the guy through that, what they're actually getting off of that is next to nothing.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to be a retail FFL. And that's always something where we were far more competitive, not, dipping into guns.
Yeah, more just to do something interesting and like unique that no one else really would be like positioned to do, like the Mateba thing.
Yeah. I mean, we have looked at some import export, like there's some really awesome opportunities overseas. We wouldn't probably sell it directly. There's a lot of reasons behind that, but like certainly at SHOT Show, we talked to a few people and we have the licensing to do a lot of really high level import export. And we have an SOT and all that other stuff. It's certainly helped us in the past getting stuff out of weird countries, even though sometimes it wasn't needed. That extra little bit of paperwork and the good guy stamp of Uncle Sam having our fingerprints, that part helps. So certainly it's something that we're open to. It just has to be the right opportunity, and we'd want a buyer in the States.
Yeah, it'd have to be unique and novel. Otherwise, for us, just everything adjacent to the firearms themselves is mostly what we deal in, because that's
L85s.
Oh God, don't. I mean,
my grail is like the Valmet stuff, and I'm really hoping that like now that Finland is like joining NATO in like a more serious way and all the rest of that, like that to me is like I'm just waiting for the surplus Valmets, and if I have to sell my soul to get some really good parts kits, that would make my my whole year if we could bring something like that in the States. I would say that's the one opportunity where, like, regardless of whether or not we are well positioned to do it, I would love to bring that to the States.
That'd be fucking awesome. Do you guys have your like FFL and all your stuff?
Yeah, we hold 2 FFLs and an SOT.
That's awesome. I actually had no idea. Like,
yeah. So this goes into like the nerdy side of things, and like I assume
that's
like,
fine.
But like we have a Type 8 and a Type 10 and an SOT, so we can manufacture everything, including destructive devices, and we have an importer's FFL.
I'm sure your office parties are a lot of fun. That's badass.
yeah.
I've seen some of your marketing content. I'm like, ooh, how did they get those? I guess that kind of explains it.
Yep, they're ours.
That's fucking badass. So we haven't really got into it yet. I really gotta say, I'm a fan of the TED posting. How did that start? It's very on brand, and I had no idea how you guys were running parallel to us with the our best selling shirt right now is just a printout of the first page of his manifesto.
Yeah.
So with all the TED posting, I mean, it started as just a big thing like to do is just internet memes, internet culture, kind of bring that to its own form of life with like different merch. And so what was the first TED product we did? I think was the patch?
It was with Uncle Ted's.
Uncle Ted. So I think what our first TED product was just we did the Uncle Ben's rice like art, but we just made it Uncle Ted. And that just kept selling out. And so we were like, okay, well, people obviously find this funny and really care about this as much as we do, right? So we kind of took it from there. After that, we did Uncle Ted's cabin as a patch, but also as a hat. And so on the back it says "Having a Blast" 87. And that also, it really was just kind of following what people really liked. So kind of our customers, I think that what happened is our customers, what's the word I'm looking for here? Enabled us. Our customers enabled us to take it all the way until we got to the TED Tour tee, which was truly a labor of love and also equally, as popular as the rest of it.
Yeah, which for the uninitiated, the uninitiated is the Taylor Swift tour tee, but we remixed it with Uncle Ted.
Yeah,
instead.
yeah. So we cloned her Eras Tour merch.
I
So we did
love
like
that.
a bunch of stickers, and we did the main T-shirt. It's funny. I remember walking into Target one day while we were working on the design, and just seeing some girl walk the corner. I almost did a double take. I was like, oh wait, no, that's the normal person thing that we're copying. That's the normal thing. Okay, got it.
But it falls into that category with like the Killdozer guy and like some of that other stuff where it is like essential kind of Americana counterculture lore stuff. And certainly with our K heritage, we've never been shy about kind of hitting some of those more controversial aspects. One shout out I do want to give is Rubashka. It's a streetwear brand. He's kind of in the space. He's a little bit adjacent, but he does a lot of other things that hit on like those similar notes. It's like the TED stuff from a different angle, but kind of like that, I guess.
It's like the same 90s vibe of humor and topic. Matter as well. Like I think you recently did like a stint of like Lee Harvey Oswald merch too.
Yeah.
where like the premise of is a lot of like the if you know kind of stuff. Like just I don't know, like him in the photos of him in the military or like his scorecard or something like that. Yeah. Also, my favorite fact about Rubashka is it just means shirt in Russian.
Really?
So it's yes, my favorite company, shirt. Or it's either shirt or jacket. I can't remember which one, but it's one of those things.
Yeah. But like some of the like conspiracy memes and stuff like that, we really vibe with because it's just funny. We've done a lot of things that are really off the wall like that, and some of our best kind of like patches and things like that are like in jokes or allusions to those like weird like rabbit hole type things where we find kind of the humor in it, and we think it's a really funny in joke. So we're like, okay, well, if it's funny in the office, it's probably going to be funny in the email when we send it out to customers. And that's honestly like a litmus test. I know Basil had been talking about this earlier today when we were discussing the podcast. It's like we were doing the things that we would buy in a lot of cases. And we're doing the things that are driven by like our own
passion first, right? And then from there, just due to whatever the customer reception is, that just enables us further. So like yeah. So like a lot of the TED merch is a good example of that, or even some of the other like way out there stuff, like a lot of the please be patient, I have autism merch.
Yeah.
Right. Or some of the wacky
I see those everywhere now.
Man.
in the gun community.
Dude, I got mine like 2 years ago on Amazon. I had no idea you guys were selling one.
We had a lot of requests for it at SHOT.
Yep.
People would see us like, oh shoot, KommandoStore. Hey, do you have one of those autism hats? Like
Yeah.
I saw one like at a different like convention or like trade show like a couple months ago. Like I really need one. And it was really sad because we didn't have a whole lot on hand that we brought with us.
Yeah.
So I had like this one guy from the Aimpoint booth walk over, was like, hey, we can do a little trade. got a hat? I'm like, I really need a hat, man. I was like, okay, let's see what we can do.
Give you an
here.
acro P2.
Yeah. And every booth too, like they had the guy where like they would call him over and they're like, Jeff, get over here. This is your hat,
like,
right?
yeah.
And it was really funny how like universal that was. Like everybody had their guys like, no, he needs that hat. Like that's going to be so funny. And I was really happy too to see like just walking around the show. I know we had a autism fanny pack as well, same thing, but in the fanny pack form.
Mhm.
And I saw one of the Shaw Concepts guys just at their booth, like normally, like during the show, wearing it and like talking to customers and stuff. And I had such a big smile off of that because I was like, oh my god, like you guys go
I
for
fucking
it.
love
Hell
Shot
yeah.
Show.
They get it. They just really understand me.
Yeah. Holy shit. I fucking love Shot Show.
Yeah.
No, like it's so nice. Like one of the great things about walking the floor for like non-business purposes is
Yes.
just like finding out just how many of our people are like nestled in all of these like major players in the industry. Like,
Yeah.
oh my
how many
god, we're
people
everywhere.
score? Yeah.
Yeah, they'll tell
It's
you
very fun.
their rad score or like make an Uncle Ted joke or
Yes.
an
Yeah.
autism joke or whatever it is, and you're like,
They're kind of
believer.
nestled in everywhere, and I love it.
You always think you're the weird one, and then you find
Yeah.
out that it's not true at all.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
everyone else is like just as like goofy goblin mode as you are, and that was a really nice, like comforting thing about Shot.
Yeah. It's like the people in places you would never expect like your shit. And I appreciate that. And you know, if you're listening to this right now and you met us with Shot Show or anything like that, we love you. And if you're listening to this, we love you also, regardless.
I will say, yeah, on that note, I know we had gotten messages every year. It seems to happen like, oh, I saw you at SHOT Show, but I didn't want to like bother you guys or whatever. Like we go to SHOT Show expecting people to like come and interact with us and that sort of thing. So I do want to say, like, if you see us next year at the show, do come up to us. We will give you swag. We will give you a hug.
Yeah, well, it's always interesting too because we definitely don't. I would think we don't look like intimidating. I mean, like even this year we dressed up to like not be intimidating. We all dressed up as Pizza Hut delivery people, you know. So yeah, please do not hesitate. We want to be bothered really bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. I love, like, there's a certain level, and I've said this before, like within the industry that we occupy, where it's like a really low general consumer, you know, your average, you know, 60-year-old salty man who runs a failing, you know, gun store, and you know, the person with a Anderson AR with the Firefield red dot on it, and at the very top you've got suits. And I think the middle area that we all kind of live in is amazing, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's just made up of the coolest people.
Yeah.
100%.
And I would say too, for maybe some of the people who haven't had the opportunity to go to SHOT Show or haven't been kind of in the industry and maybe just enjoy it, like, you know, the product aspect of it, and the cultural aspect, a lot of people, because it's such a niche community and really small, like a lot of the owners of these businesses are really, really genuinely nice and really,
Yes.
really care. That was something that it shouldn't be surprising, but certainly like the first time that we met a lot of these people, like there's so much like warmth and encouragement in the industry. And that's probably not an aspect like what goes online is like the Twitter drama stuff. And like, you often hear like people like, oh, like this company imploded or whatever else, but there's so much support and kind of like encouragement out there. And so many extremely lovely people. I know Mike from Sons of Liberty was on the show not too long ago.
Yep.
Yeah, he's great. I really like him.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
And like first time we went to SHOT Show last year, that was probably one of the best experiences of the whole show. Like we went over to their booth, and they like the whole booth like stopped to like come over and talk to us, and like we had the big fish hats at that time, and they were just like,
Hell yeah.
they were going nuts.
It was kind of unreal. It was definitely a shock because, you know, we had just been stopping by to try and hand deliver. Mike had bought one of our heat rigs, and we kept missing him, kept coming back. And then
Are you guys bringing those back? Sorry, totally unrelated. Please get back to the.
I think we still have some stock.
I'm pretty sure we still have some. I mean, it's getting down there, but I'm pretty sure we still have some.
Yeah. Last I checked, it's like KommandoStore/Heat or whatever is the hot link for that.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure we don't have a lot, but we still have a few hundred, I think.
Yeah.
That's fucking hot. Sorry, continue. Yes,
No, yeah.
Mike.
Well,
you bought one.
so it would, Shot was like our first time really bringing like our physical being and face and name and everything else like around to a lot of these people, and we didn't quite know what to expect because at the time of early 2023, we're really late to the game on kind of like coming to social media, and we were still really isolationist a bit in some ways as a company. We had only just started talking to people.
Some of that like 4chan hangover, basically. It's like we started on like the secret internet forum, right? Like it's not exactly conducive. Like most of your 4chan type people, like they're gonna have like a locked down OS on their phone, and they're not gonna have a social media profile. And if they do, it's gonna be like under a pseudonym. Like we were definitely in that culture, right?
Yeah. So, and we kind of just, I mean, that's why we, kind of had like the style of like censoring like all the models' faces and stuff like that. Why we called everyone Ivan in the beginning, and we just kept doing that because it became our style. But we never really thought of when to stop, or when it was more just for style, and we didn't have to do it for anything else anymore. So to meet Mike and just instantly start shooting the shit with them, and like they'll have talked to the whole team, and they're just all really cool, and they're like actually like know about us and like fans of us, and to hear that was just really not what I was expecting. It was such a shock. And so we gave him we had a little care package for them, and Mike was so nice. He told us he'd send us a whole garbage bag of merch after the show, and he did. He literally sent like everyone on the team back in South Dakota. So like everyone merch, and including the garbage bag, he included in the box.
Hey.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, so I love that guy.
He's genuine.
Yeah. That's like you said, like it's a oddly small community. Like walking the short show floor, seeing like what was it? I think it was like 55,000 people this year. That's like internationally, that's still a pretty small pond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like especially when it comes to like just the stateside guys and just the people who are kind of in our talking circles. Like it's oddly so personable, which was like really nice to learn. I figured, going around like the first day we were going around on on some passes that our buddies at Discreet Ventures got. Oh yeah, we're the art and war guys. Everyone's like, oh hi.
Yeah, I know you. Giving us they're like, have you guys done the RADS test, like the autism test?
I'm pretty sure we had a day at work where everybody did some form of online autism quiz, and we were comparing scores, but like people were upset that they weren't high on it.
Yeah.
Like they were
Skill issue.
Yeah.
We were the chosen one. No. Yeah, I need to update my score. I don't remember what it was, but because I don't remember, I probably am not autistic.
I disappointed Nathan with a lowly 62. I need to do it again and do an average like you do, Nathan.
You need to just, I don't know, like drink a bunch of tap water. I don't know, get vaccinated first.
What's the max score? Like what is autistic? What score?
The threshold is
75?
Like
okay.
I thought it was 65.
Maybe it was 65. Yeah, I think it's 65 because you said that you missed it by a couple.
Yeah. I'm like 3 points below, like, you might be autistic. And then, like, once you start going, like, 10 above 65, or, like, it ratchets up to the point where it's like, oh, yeah, dude, you're autistic.
Yeah. I got a 147 last time, or was it 143? I average around that 150.
I love that you retest.
Yeah, I retest.
What does it go up to?
It's like,
does it go up to like 200?
No, I thought it did initially, and then my friend at Dead Air got 203.
Oh my
and
God.
I thought it like probably maxed out around 210 or something. And then my friend Aaron from Loveless Performance, I'm sorry, buddy, I'm calling you out. He got 223.
God
An
bless him.
Impressive 223.
Very
fucking
impressive.
American hero.
Yes.
Okay.
Basil has a really good story about about autism specifically.
Sometimes you think it's a good story.
No, it's a good story. We involving the post office.
The post office?
And a particular parcel.
I don't remember the autism one. Was there an autism one?
There was.
I remember the other bad ones.
We had a letter about it.
Letter about autism?
Bad one.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. The one post office we shut down.
Yeah.
How can I forget that one?
We shut down mail to an entire state over this one.
Yeah. So long history. The way that KommandoStore ship packages is lots of box art. So I'm drawn in because I everyone, especially when it was just a handful of orders, it was so personal, and I was packing all the orders. So I would big red Sharpie are on the box, on their invoice, yada yada. And then at some point I was like, oh man, we got to keep this up. Like people like this a lot, right? They'd request it. So I would throw jokes around based on how I felt sometimes. One day I wrote on a small box, I wrote weaponized autism inside.
Oh no.
And I didn't hear anything about it. It was fine. Like the package went out and I went on to live my life for another year. Then I get a letter from the post office. I think it was in Ohio, I believe. No, sorry. The customer got a letter from the post office in Ohio, and the post office told the customer that they had to contact the shipper in order for them to release the package. Oh. So first thing first, this guy didn't get his order and didn't tell us for a year. It's like, dude, like why? But so that guy emailed me, and I ended up getting on the phone with him. And he basically told me what was going on, that he had to request me to contact them and whatnot, because it had been blocked off. So I called the post office up. I found out what it was about. It was because of the someone in the post office sorting facility saw it, freaked out, and they actually called a bomb squad and they shut the whole hub down. So it wasn't just a normal post office. It was actually, I think, a hub for Ohio somewhere, which messes up a lot of a logistic, logistic train for that. And then they determined, oh wait, there's no threat about this. It just has a jacket and a patch inside. And then they proceeded to put it on a shelf and do nothing about it for a year before they reached out to the customer. So, and I remember talking to the guy over the phone.
It was like a postal inspector.
It was a postal inspector, and he's like, it says weaponized autism on the box. Someone get the wrong idea. And I remember telling him, well, you can't weaponize autism. To which he was just kind of paused and went, well, I know that, but, they never really had a good response to that. So he's like, I'm going to have to sanitize the box before we can deliver it. And I'm like, okay. It's just like, what's that, like putting a label over it, like just taping over it, which is what they did. But after he delivered it, they delivered it to the customer, and I connected back up with the customer and told him the story. It was a customer that ended up realizing what happened and sent me the article that it had gotten shut down, because I wrote weaponized autism and Sharpie on the side of the box.
Fuck yeah.
So, yeah.
It's the power of words, people.
Yeah. I also got, speaking of postal inspectors, I once had to explain to a postal inspector, and these are people with badges, right, what Bane posting was, which it sounds awful. It sounds like one of those embarrassing, spaghetti falling out of your pockets, green text stories. But I articulated it very well. I don't remember what I said, but I know I did a good job, because I remember feeling particularly relieved. But I had done a Bane posting collage all over this box, which involved basically just whatever comes off Google Images. And on one of the collages, on this 4x6 inch thermal label, was a whole bunch of stuff. And there's some text in there, which is fairly small in my defense, where it said, crashing this plane with no survivors. I then proceeded to put this on a ground shipment that was never going to go on an airplane. And same story, a postal worker just saw it, like, and then, I get a visit, and then they're like, you can't be doing this. And
why not? It's fun.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, I'll definitely won't write that. That show up in a package ever again.
Can you tell them the maple syrup?
Oh,
story?
yeah.
They're Canadian, so.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so.
Only Nathan is Canadian.
I do not identify as a Canadian. Not anymore.
Okay, neither of us are Canadian.
Okay. He's just in the legal sense only, right?
Yeah.
In the spiritual sense, no.
When the day of the rake happens, you'll be spared the rake.
So one of the first employees that we hired, we're still really good friends with the guy, really took to the box art. He really liked doing the box art with me, and really took it on and away from me, which was nice, because I, as the owner of the company, I really couldn't just doodle on boxes all day. He took it sometimes in a really spicy realm that I usually wouldn't go. So there was a package to a Canadian customer, and he wrote on the side in big letters, I think it was maple syrup based anal lubricant. The side of the package. So this day, something had happened with the post office pickup, which meant I had to put the packages in my car and drive them to the post office. So, most post offices, if you have a lot of packages, you can just drive around to the back docks and just like ring a doorbell, and they'll bring out a bucket for you. Or if you have like just a handful of packages, you go in the front, and you just throw on the side of the desk. They usually have a bin, and you just kind of leave. So I'm going in and I'm loading boxes one by one. I set it down, and just as I'm about to leave, this one employee is like, "What does it say here? What is this?" And he picks it up. And I don't know what it says because I didn't write it. So he totally caught me off guard, which really screwed with me because I did really well with the postal inspector explaining Bane posting, but I did not do a good job explaining this to the post office in front of like an actual line of people. He just reads it out loud. He just says, maple syrup based anal lubricant. and I am I am just like starstruck in a bad way. I'm just like, oh God, why does it say that, right? And I mumble out just a horrible defense because I'm panicking. And I basically say while choking over myself, yeah, the customer he asked for that. He wanted that. And then I proceed to leave. I just leave and I don't look back and I drive away. I get back and I tell our guy who had what happened, and he's just sitting on the floor like crying, laughing. I'm just like, bro, you can't do this to me. Oh,
Our what was that, like pre 2019 KommandoStore was like basically one long green text.
Yeah,
like,
that was 2015 when that happened. Mm-hmm. The other one, I one final one, which really that same employee really took it a little bit too far, and then we actually had like banned another topic. Was there's a Marine base, like APO address, and we knew he was a Marine for some reason. A big package going to him. So some of the military guys, they like do a little bit of extra hazing, and we always get positive reception out of it. But Ty proceeded to just basically like print off a ton of like gay porn with like a Marine or like Army theme, and he just would put it on the box, and he'd take a Sharpie and he'd censor with the Sharpie,
like the outside of the box.
Outside of the box. Yeah, really bad. Like, and then of course I had to deal with a guy knocking on my door like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, hey, how can I help you? I'm from the post office. Like, that's cool, man. What's going on? He's like, I just want to talk about some packages we got. Immediately my heart sinks. I'm like, oh God, do I really have to do this again? He just brings on the box, and like it's so bad that the guy that dropped it off even felt bad talking about it. That air in the room where like you really don't want to push it because it's just so embarrassing. You just kind of want to let it go. I'm just like, yep, we can stop doing that.
No, message received, sir.
Yeah, and then we did. Oh man,
holy shit! Oh man, they kind of. This is unrelated. I'm sorry, but my mind just jumped to like before I left. I don't eat fast food anymore, and part of the reason for that is like I'd go to my local McDonald's and I'd get like coffee for my friends and myself, and I'd always go like kind of a weird hour. I'd work late, so I'd get it like 10, 11 p.m. sometimes a little later, and it's just a bad habit. But I always start the order with like, "Hey, do you mind if I get like a black coffee?" So and so. I always start with, "Do you mind?" I don't know why. But this one guy, he started replying, "Yeah, I do mind. What are you going to do about it?" So, and I don't know how it started, but like I'd go there almost every day. The things I would reply with would get increasingly dark, and he would feed into it. We just feed off each other, and it's like, well, I guess I'll go in there and hang myself in your bathroom. And
cool. Wow.
Like, can
it's like
I
the
join
strangest
you?
form of pen pals I've ever heard.
It was the strangest thing, and like, it was never the person who actually gave me the coffee at the window.
You never met this person face to face?
I don't think so. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I couldn't tell, but like it was sometimes like a lady giving, like a middle-aged Filipino lady giving me my coffee. So I don't think it was like a teenage boy's voice. And he's like, yeah, you know what? Mood. I feel that. Let's do it together. And then one day, and this is very shortly before I came here, I ordered my coffee, and I'm like, hey, do you mind if I get, my black coffee? so and so, and I just hear a female's voice in the background go, "Is it the guy?" And I never went to that McDonald's again. I drove across town to avoid having to deal with that.
Oh, you saw the man behind the curtain. You know you have a reputation at that place now.
Yes, I have a reputation for threatening to turn my head into raspberry jam in their parking lot.
It takes a special kind of, like brotherly bond to throw that kind of shit posting at each other and kind of know where you're coming from,
And I did not
IRL
realize that
shitposting.
everyone on those radios can hear that. I regret that.
Oh man.
Hey man, you want me to change your life forever?
I knew that the microphones are always on and they're really sensitive.
Yeah.
But I did not know they're all listening to it at once.
Yeah, I don't know if it's all but enough. I have a
Enough
friend of
people.
mine-
Yeah. No, I feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, enough people saw me at the post office. That really just does it.
No, you gotta, that post office burned. Like it's burned for you. You can never go back there, kind of deal. And I just immediately thought of that.
I got very lucky burning the post office near our first warehouse in the small town because it's very realistic. I'll never have to go back.
You can never look these people in the eye again.
There were so many stories because we did box art on most orders when we first started out, and people would egg us on. They'd be like, "Man, last time was great. Up the ante, right?" So we would get requests from people just fuck me up, fam, or whatever else, and we'd have to oblige. We felt like, as Basil said, he asked for it, right?
It was like a dare.
It's customer service.
Yeah,
it was.
It was absolutely. We were doing a service for the customers. What a service.
I remember a couple times we knew something was going to base. We would purposely pack it in too big of a box so that they'd have to carry it like the public shame aspect. They'd have to carry it past all their buddies in this massive box. So we did one, I think it was My Little Pony, pornography or something like that.
We did the horse semen samples. Went over really well. That's a sentence I just said.
That's incredible.
Block.
Yeah, it was in huge letters. It said equine semen samples or something. It was
wasn't from Glock, but
yeah. We found a fake farm. It's a real farm. We found an actual breeding farm and printed out their logo on the thermal printer and put it on the box and stuff like that. It was so bad, and we got an email back after. That's the best part, is getting the emails a week later or something like that, and people would be like, "Dude, what'd you do?" We did one where we had censored. I think it was either Raven from Teen Titans.
Oh God!
The Shadman version, or something horrific, and we had censored it with. We had these little round KommandoStore logo stickers that had KS and a little they were circles, and we had, circle is really helpful for something like that, but we had covered all the naughty bits with the stickers, but they fell off in transit.
And they still delivered it, so it's just crazy. Go wild, go crazy.
I legitimately felt quite bad about that one because we had intended for it to be not nearly as bad as that. Oh God!
Man.
It goes to the wrong suburb with a really prude homeowners association.
Yeah, I was going to say
How
the
did-
17-year-old airsofter who ordered that stuff. When his conservative Christian mom receives that package, that's going to be a bad day. That's
The spider.
The spider?
The spider.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Okay.
Fucking tell us.
So, one day my employees captured a live spider in a box. And so they're like, okay. Well, they taped it up and they wrote on the box, live spider inside. And they put in the order, which if I had been there, I would have been like, no, don't do that.
Don't do that one.
So guy gets a package, sees the box, says live spider inside, opens the box. There's a live spider inside. It's still alive. Proceeds to get really mad that we put a live spider inside the box. It says live spider. Sends a huge angry email. And I'm just like, what the heck did you guys do?
And we were really worried. We like asked him like, "Oh, are you like allergic or whatever?" Because it's like just a house spider. Like it's nothing. It's like, "No, I don't have an allergy, but I could have."
Mhm.
Oh,
like,
well, don't be a pussy then.
Yeah,
it's
You're
like a
welcome
daddy
for
long
the
legs or
free
something.
gift.
it's extra protein or a new pet, depending how you look at it.
Mhm.
oh god,
That is the funniest thing in the fucking world.
yeah.
Do you guys still do that?
So a lot of our employees still decorate boxes. Some of our older customers still ask for it. They asked for it, right? I actually every now and then, once in a blue moon, I have an employee walk up to me and be like, "Hey, he really wanted Ivan to write him a letter," and so I'll write something quick on like the packing slip. But when it comes to that end, it's not like every package anymore. It's just a handful every now and then when the customer like actually asks for it in the order comments. And
The
when it comes to the
OGs.
art we do, it's not like censored porn and crazy stuff like that. Now it's just like a lot of our packers have their own style. They'll hit up either way. So it's like
cute drawings. And
yeah,
stuff.
cute drawings, their own memes, or just something funny. So it still lives on in its own sense, but it just would not be logistically possible to do it to the degree we did in like the first like 3 to 4 years of the company.
Yeah. Still, that's friggin' amazing. That is.
It used to be like Russian roulette because like back when we were truly unhinged and like straight off of 4chan and we had those like really like crazy packers and stuff like that, we'd have people like beg like, "Please, this is going to my parents' house. Please don't do it." And then of course we would, right? Because like
I would keep it on the inside most of the time, But if you live in a town with a funny name, like, "Oh, it's game over, pal."
if you live in Dildo or
yeah.
Yeah.
We would like make jokes about like people's last names and stuff like that and like all kinds of stuff. My favorite though was
Truly juvenile.
Yeah, it was really bad. But what it did is like people like your normal kind of like day-to-day life is just so boring, and then you get something like that and it happens to you and like you talk about it for a week, right?
Yeah.
Or like 2 weeks, or like maybe it makes your month.
It's an icebreaker.
Yeah. And we say like the most horrible stories because like they're the most funny, but like a lot of the stuff we did was like really kind of like wholesome and like fun. And like one of my favorite all-time ones was we wrote on a box like, "To postman, like please hug like Darren." I don't know what his actual name was, but like, "Please give Darren a hug." And like the postman actually gave the guy a hug, like the stars aligned, he was there. And we got an email back and it was like, "Dude, like that was like the nicest thing that happened to me all week. Like that was just freaking nuts. Like thank you for doing that." And that like stuff like that was like always really, really nice.
And customers liked reciprocating it too when they could. So like in returns, they'd always have their go at it whenever they did exchanges or returns, or they just like send us like extra stuff, which would get like taped up on the wall or on the fridge all the time.
Yeah, we get like drawings, like the crayon drawing from the customer type of thing. Like those marine drawings of like, "Have a good war," like that sort of thing.
A couple of those are framed too,
Yeah.
and they're just like all around or like on our fridge. They're definitely, customer service keeps a good rotation of like fan art or just like nice things on under the magnets on the fridge in the rec room.
I love that. That's community. That
Yeah.
is actually community. I plan on getting some of those multicam Gorkas from you guys, and I do expect some Teen Titans pornography of Raven in there.
Just fuck me up, dog.
Just fuck me right up.
You can be as specific as you need to in the order comments. All right. And we still have plenty of staff on hand that can do what's needed.
Yeah.
Oh fuck. With the overseas orders, like I started hit on it earlier. You guys mentioned the Italian job. Like that sounds like it was mostly kind of remote negotiations. Have there been anything where you guys had to be there in person for like kind of weird dealings?
So in some places in like the United Kingdom and Europe, we've definitely done a couple of visits. Outside of there though, it's just been WhatsApp, email, phone calls,
That's probably for the best when you're talking about like South Africa and the Middle East and all sorts of and Russia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's great though. Like you see somebody's Telegram profile or like their WhatsApp, and like they've obviously been using the profile for like dating, and you're trying to do like a business deal or something, and there's like a shirtless pic of them or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Or it's just a picture of their kids or their cat. And it's just like, okay, that's pretty nice. Like it's kind of more of a down to earth kind of person.
Yeah.
It's just like their daughter like running around, right? Although for the Russian connection, we did actually eventually establish contacts. We actually helped him immigrate here.
Yeah, wait. So do you guys know the story behind Gorka?
No, actually.
The latest match. Okay, so way back in early 2016, we hooked up with a company out in Russia because we really badly want to do Gorka suits. So those that don't know, it's basically just like their 2-piece suit for like their camis, their fatigues, right? What they'll use out in the field. And there's almost been an internal joke going on in the company for a couple of years, which was Gorka soon, because we had so many almost like sourced Gorka moments where we tell customers like, hey, we think we got Gorkas, we'll let you guys know, and like nothing came of it. So we just keep saying Gorka soon. We finally made Gorka happen because we wanted to do it not only with a company that made really good suits and care, but that it had some actual contracts, right, with military and police over there. So we ended up establishing contact with Modox over there, and so we've been working with the same guy all the way from when he was just an employee there because it was his family business to as he became the owner of it over I think it's been like 7 years now.
Yeah, and doing business in Russia is crazy. Like
I
we were going to
imagine.
this, we didn't understand like any of the bribe stuff.
Yeah,
So like we had a
screwed that
shipment-
up too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first shipment of Gorkas, from after that, we definitely had our guy facilitate most of it because we missed one queue, which we had paid like all the taxes, got all the paperwork done, and the one guy that was like kind of the broker over there was like, oh, you need to pay this one tax, and he like gave it to us like this extra military tax. And we're like, what? Yeah, this. Like, no, we don't. What are you saying? That's stupid. Like, we don't need to pay that. And he's like, okay. And then the shipment proceeded to instead not ship to us, but get split up into 3 pieces. One piece went to Australia.
What the fuck?
The other piece, yeah, dude. The other piece went to I think this South Korea, and then another piece just disappeared. And then like 5 months later, it just showed up one day at O'Hare Airport in Chicago.
All of them?
All of them. Yep, including the third piece. We had no idea where it ended up going, and it was through DHL, and that's how like they eventually just found it. But I'm pretty sure it's just like we didn't pay the right bribes. So like, okay, well.
Yeah. And we were completely tone deaf. It was like the really naive kid of like, oh, what do you mean? Like, we already paid our taxes. And he was like, oh no, this is the extra tax.
Yeah.
It's like, it's obviously not a tax because it's like so cheap. It was like $500 or something like that for like a fairly sizable order.
Yeah.
And we were just completely tone deaf to it. And that there was just one corrupt guy in the Russian DHL office. And when we didn't play ball, he just had them load it onto random planes to spite us.
Yeah, so that took 6 months, and they eventually all made it. They're all there. Like, we didn't lose anything, but from there on, yeah, we definitely had our guy handle everything because there's like so many like at every waypoint there's a bribe, right? And sometimes at some of the bigger ones, different people that are in charge play the game differently from what they want out of you. So they can just throw you like, oh, I'm going to arrest your goods. Why? Just because, just because I feel like it, because they want to see what we do. One of the funniest way we got out of some goods being arrested wasn't to pay more money because we already paid them money, but was to try and make the following paperwork so pedantically annoying to deal with that they would just let go. So what we did is I wrote a letter from my company to theirs, basically throwing a hissy fit and saying like, well, I never signed an agreement to do any of this. So if you're going to get this document out of me, you have to file this and do X, Y, Z, just to make it so annoying to deal with actually them arresting the goods and having to file the paper for that she just let them go.
That's so funny.
On the person that had taken control over them. But yeah, so we did first we just stocked their Gorka suits themselves, but around 2018, we were starting to get to a point in the company where we really wanted to do some more of our own stuff. And there were just things we really wanted to see that didn't exist. We were starting to get into more reproductions. And one of the things we looked at was the Gorka suit, because a lot of the Gorka suits we were stocking at that time to date hadn't really changed much since like the 90s and like the early 2000s. And there was we were also at the same time really getting into a lot of the more technical apparel, kind of part of kind of like this industry with a lot of the other nicer, more Gucci gear, right? Arktis, Arc'teryx, Patagonia, whatever.
Yeah.
And so we saw a lot of points where like, hey, if one change would like totally modernize this or just increase like the quality of life for it, but it would still have that like that old school vogue. It'd still be a Gorka suit. So that's when we started actually customizing suits with them and doing our entirely own thing. And so we called it the Gorka K because a lot of different suits will have their own designation, whether it's a letter or a number. So that was ours, our commando. And we had been doing that for a decent bit of time. So first Gorka K was in 2018. We had gone through a couple different iterations. We had done the K2, and then we had a spin-off where we tried to make it work with more Western style plate carriers. We called it the M. And we were just doing a kind of our biggest run in like early 2021. And it started still seeing a little bit of hiccups from there's COVID regulations in Russia were a little different, where when they decided they were going to have a shutdown, they would shut down. And if they caught you like still doing business, they just basically just like arrest your ass or like fine you. So that was causing some hiccups, and it pushed it all the way up to the point until, the awkward thing in the room, the whole conflict happened in Ukraine, and they were still being manufactured over there. So we had like kind of two things going on. Not only was our friend in Russia like stuck there, just wondering like when it was going to be his time to get conscripted, but also all of the Gorka suits and the production, everyone that worked on these suits was like stuck over there dealing with this. So it was an insane to orchestrate, because at this point our Gorka suits had gotten so complicated that we were actually also shipping materials into Russia, not just trying to build something there and get it out. So we had buttons coming from Italy. We had fabric that we were shipping from us in the US to there. We had more stuff coming from mills in China. And we had to like not only sneak things in, but also eventually sneak them out. Because like not only was it difficult to get anything through the border, but combat suits that are made in multicam, you bet your ass as soon as custom sees that, they're like, actually no, we're really interested in this, because currently we're tailoring guys to buy tampons for bandages right now, right? So we were really, really concerned about just like losing it as soon as we tried to ship it out of the country. So we did so many crazy possibilities we worked out, including my favorite was pirates based out of Kyrgyzstan. We almost went that option. We almost went with that route. Like the straight up like
As
actual
your
like
courier?
pirates.
That's fucking awesome.
And to them it looked like a really cool job, because usually like they have to smuggle something illegal, but this time it's just like clothing. Like, oh yeah. Why not? Let's do it, right?
Yeah.
We ended up not having to. Luckily, we found a more.
Damn it! That would have been a good case story.
It would have been so
interesting.
It would have been so kick-ass. But then we found a more direct route to smuggle it out through the Scandinavias. So
yeah, and I should clarify, as far as U.S. Customs is concerned, we are all above board, because that was mainly what we were trying to do is we were trying to avoid stuff getting stolen by Russia and sent to the front in Ukraine. So we were playing this cat and mouse game with Russian customs to sneak the final things in and then sneak all the goods out so that they couldn't be co-opted by the Russian state. And it was, as Basil described, like we were developing the actual toolkit that you would need to run like an international like drug crime ring, or like a Lord of War style thing. And it was really funny because we were talking about this and we were like, holy shit, like we've actually done all, like we could be like doing like illegal drug trade with the level of effort to try to like get this one project to work out. Yeah. And
getting the fabric rolls from us to them was really difficult, because like no one at the Chicago airport wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole, because it was like, I was going to Russia, like I don't want to do that. And so like I had like the owner of like freight forwarders call me like, some cool people, but be like, yeah, I just had a plane arrested because they thought like some Russian stuff, like their stuff might be going to Russia. So I just kind of can't touch this. So you have to like find the right company and the right person wanted to send out there, and then just find the right, so many different contacts for smuggling things to get it out of the country. So many shady characters who are very disagreeable and speaking all these different languages.
Just to do white hat business.
Exactly, yeah. Once it was out, we did pay the exorbitant import tax, which was 65% on Russian goods.
So people don't know that the border's still open. Like for a lot of, I don't know what it is like this month, but like you could export stuff from Russia, but the tariffs, as Basil said, 65%. So when I say it's like above board as far as U.S. Customs is concerned, like, yeah, once we got it out of Russia, we declared it was Russian origin, and we paid the full fat milk price of that 65%. Previously, it was
7%.
Yeah.
So
Shit.
we were doing this manufacturing run. Out of nowhere, the war in Ukraine happens at the exact wrong time, and our import tax that we had budgeted goes from 7% to 65%.
Jesus.
So it's just a labor of love at that point, or
Yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it was a labor of love, and it was like it was a battle because it took us like 2.5 years to get those things from the inception, from the PO being submitted to getting them manufactured and getting them here, just through Russian COVID shutdowns to getting stuff into Russia, to getting stuff out of Russia. And actually, one of my favorite parts also about getting materials into Russia is there was this one part where we were trying to import genuine multicam fabric from China into Russia, and we wanted to make it look boring and like not valuable. So I was sitting there messing with the import documents to make it look like it was like knockoff multicam from China, like not real stuff. And in doing that, I discovered the way that the Chinese who had made the original invoice had also already lied and had like doctored it already by the time I got to my hands. And it's just like the layers of like multiple people like lying and then bribing each other along the way between these like cross-border like imports is just ridiculous.
That's so fucking good.
Yeah, but then I try to make it look like it was like not total knockoff, like the pink shaded stuff you were talking about earlier. You know, make it boring. But then eventually, actually before we got the Gorkas fully out,
that side of things too. What they'll do to threaten you at the border for their bribe on the fabrics is they'll threaten to unroll all of your rolls, which they're wound really tightly at the factory. So if they are unrolled and then re-rolled, like they double in size. It's like a sleeping bag that you can like never get back into the sack.
Yeah.
So like that was their threat. It's like, oh, well, we need to measure exactly how long the roll is. And the only way to do that is to unroll it. But you can pay this measuring fee or whatever else, and we won't do it. We'll just kind of like let it go through. But it's such like a niche thing. Like everybody has like this grift. So like somebody in the fabric office of like the Russian customs is like, all right, this is my like little way to like supplement my income now, and I'm going to do this to every single person that tries to move a roll of fabric into Russia. But it's just.
And the funny thing about that is they did threaten to measure our rolls, but it was because we had over-reported fabric, not under-reported. So if I had under-reported, it would make sense. Like I'm trying to cheat you out, but we actually over-reported, and they were still just like, I guess I'm gonna have to beat up this whole roll here, which would and it sucks because it'll mess with like it gets your fabric dirty, and also just increases like the size of it shipping the whole rest of the way. So it just makes you the best way that can make your day worse in like every way possible.
Jeez, that is actually like war dogs. This entire thing is turning into surplus war dogs, and I love it.
It's like less life-threatening and also like dramatic war dogs. So just like it's sometimes it's funny because it's dramatic, but it's also like really pedantic. Like it's a bunch of nerds in a customs office, like, I'm gonna mess up their roll of fabric. You know, we're all just like freaking out over this. You know, but
motherfuckers.
But before we got the Gorkas out of there, we ended up getting our guy out of there. So at the time was finally guy? Like actually, the Gorka guy,
Mr. Gorka.
At the time we'll call him Mr. Gorka because we want to be, kind of we don't conceal his identity, but got Mr. Gorka out of there because it basically was getting to the point where they were just opening up more of like the requirements for conscriptions, and he was just basically kind of like waiting for his moment to get to just go die with an airsoft carrier and a Mosin Nagant with no ammo, right? And it was really, really tough. It was really tough for him not only to leave because he left like his whole family there and his cool apartment and everything else and all his friends, but also the journey to get him into the U.S. was crazy because he had to go through Scandinavia, ended up in Mexico, in like a really like scary part of Mexico. I'd call him on the phone, and there'd just be people screaming in the background because they had like different immigrant camps and stuff like that. But he was able to claim political asylum, and then we were able to basically to kind of like take care of him in South Dakota while he went through the normal process, and he's now a full-fledged citizen, with a social security number and a cowboy hat. So he's doing much better now, but it was crazy because he was moving, I think, between Russia to the US for like a month and a half.
Yeah.
Fuck.
And it was tricky too because when he made the move from the Scandinavias to Mexico, he had to be really careful because different airlines were just like denying Russian passports and stuff like that, regardless of where they were coming from, and whatnot. So he was able to like talk to a lot of friends he had in different areas, kind of thread the needle to make it over here. But yeah, so we helped him come out here, and then we coordinated with him like in person to get the Gorkas here. And I think that was the second, I think, victory for him.
Yeah.
Getting that done with him was just ridiculous, but also was like some of the greatest closure on that crazy project. Was not only had it been 2.5 years, but we also I got to actually meet Mr. Gorka and be able to help him out. And actually one of the funny things, one of the nice things about it too, is I remember I was going through old emails the other day to look up some old facts on Gorka like a couple months ago. And I found a really old email from like 5 years ago where Mr. Gorka knew about Thanksgiving, even though they don't do it over in Russia. And so he emailed us just to wish us a happy Thanksgiving, and kind of as just a polite aside, so maybe we'll have Thanksgiving someday. And we ended up having the first Thanksgiving with him.
That's so sweet. I love that.
We've now actually had two with him, but the first one was I didn't realize until afterwards. It was really sweet. So that was a friend and an adventure I never thought I would have gone on.
Yeah,
but it worked out in the end.
Also, when it comes to KommandoStore customer service, we will import the manufacturer himself to get you your product. There is no end to which we will go.
Fuck yeah. That's awesome. Holy shit. Well, gents, we've gone a little over 2 hours, but is there anything you guys want to share with the audience before we start wrapping up?
Oh God!
Did we really go over 2 hours?
It doesn't feel like that. I can't tell
that.
because my internet died for a minute there. It says 33 minutes for me. But
no.
Rural
Okay,
Idaho life.
That's awesome. It's good when it goes by fast like that.
Yeah.
So in terms of just closing comments,
anything you want to share with the audience or
show yourself,
anything.
Sure. Well, but before plugs, I just do want to say, we've been kind of isolationists, just on our little island for the longest time, and we're almost 11 years old, and it's only in the last 2 years we started embracing social media, going to SHOT Show, meeting people. Really wish we had done it 5 to 6 years sooner, but it's been really crazy just to see just who's out there and just make those connections and just to be more public about who we are and what we do. There's no reason we should not be that. No reason we shouldn't use our names, and share that. And I kind of, at the same time, I feel bad that we've been in the shadows for so long. I'm just really excited to kind of start a new chapter for us, bringing everyone in, meeting a lot of people. It's just been nothing but just a privilege and just such a joy since I think the first SHOT Show last year, just to find out just the connections we've made and how much other people do care. And we're not just the weird guys in the 3-hole balaclavas out there. We're not just the weird surplus gremlins. So that's felt really good. And I mean, this is a big first for us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I'm
like-
really honored by the fact that you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
chose us to do that with. It means a lot.
It is kind of crazy. It's like we have never talked publicly as the founders of the company in any respect about KommandoStore.
That's
Basil and
wild.
I-
In
Yeah.
11 years.
Yeah.
And you guys have so many interesting stories, and I feel like if you ever want to do another one, I would love that, because I feel like there's a lot more to your story than what we managed to cover in 2 hours.
We've got a lot bottled up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love a lot of the War Dog stuff. There's so much. Like obviously, like we went through Gorka, and like that was just like one one thing.
Yeah.
There's so much over the last 11 years that Basil and I have been able to do. Really, KommandoStore has been a privilege in that respect, and that we've been exposed to so much of kind of the wild and weird and like wonderful aspects. Certainly, I hope that comes across in the passion that we put into our copy and our marketing and stuff like that. We definitely want to share the experience with people and like share the energy with people.
Yeah, it's still all about just at the end of the day what we care about, what we find interesting.
Yeah.
That's why we choose to do what we do to this day. So
Yeah.
it's been wonderful to be a part about that and just be a little bit more, be able to share more about that, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in terms of the other usual plugs you probably hear, you know, of course we're, you know, on Twitter, of course we're on Instagram. But if I was to choose one thing to plug, it would actually be our mailing list. And the reason for that is where all of our passion and like everything we care about when we talk about it goes into the mailing list. And we're really unique in that because we ran the company with no advertising and like not being on social media, just word of mouth on a mailing list and what we talk about in that for pretty much 7 years.
Holy shit.
Because we don't just hit you with a one page where it's like, we have a sale and you're supposed to click on it. Like we do full articles. We spurg out on all the details. And so like everyone's heart and soul and why we pick something and what's cool about it goes into those emails. And it's more than just trying to tell you that something's 20% off. So if I was to pick one thing to plug, it would be the mailing list.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, you can do that on the website. There's a pop-up that says like join Commando Pro, which is really great because you get 1% off lifetime every order. There's no exclusions to that, which is really nice, except for like gift cards and night vision. I think that's the only things.
Yep. So if you go Commando Pro, that puts you on the mailing list. We rebranded it to that because we couldn't help ourselves with the Modern Warfare 2 nostalgia.
Yeah,
it has the same logo and everything. We changed it a little bit. So yeah.
And then I think going forward this year, I mean, it's going to be a huge year for us. I'm very excited. There's a lot of things that like Basil would kill me if I like, you know, said on air or whatever.
And I'd hope you kill me.
Yeah. But I think people are going to be really, really blown away by kind of the next level of product and like even the media stuff that we're bringing to market. And we're certainly, I think we're at a level where the final piece is really just kind of like breaking out our shell a little bit and like reaching a broader audience. And that's one of the reasons I was so excited to be on the podcast with you guys. Obviously we have like our mailing list. We have those core customers that know us all the way back from, you know, 2013, 2012 on K, but kind of bringing everybody else in and bringing them along for the ride. It's going to be a really nuts year. And I'm very, very excited to kind of make a big dent.
Oh yeah.
So
Fuck yeah, all the dents.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We would love to come back.
Yes.
100%.
Oh man.
There's some. Yeah, we'd actually not only love to come back. There's so many other stories, but also just there's a lot of other people on our team that we'd love that would also love to tell some of these stories too. So yeah, like I said, we bottle a lot up. We started like putting bullets on a whiteboard of just all the things we could talk about, and it kind of became a little bit exhaustive. So it wasn't really that useful in the end, other than just good
It flowed
internalization
very
of what had
easily.
happened.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, open door, guys. Like
Yeah.
whenever you guys want to come back on, always welcome. An
Yeah.
absolute pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And to close out, you guys have any dad advice for our listeners here? Some dad advice, Faceless would call it.
Dad vice?
Yes.
Okay. A dad vice or
Dad-
dad vice? Because I have a lot of dad vices, but dad vice, hold on, give me a second.
I mean, full disclosure, neither of us have children yet.
Yeah, I
so-
know, but I feel like I'm 60 years old, so
Yeah, that's
you know.
true. We've worked as
Don't
if
we
we
all?
do have kids.
yeah. I mean, if I was to give some like dad advice, that's also something I learned through KommandoStore. It would be that it's kind of like ask and you shall receive. There's a lot of people which you will learn something or gain something just by asking, even if it seems like it's a silly thing to ask, or like, you know, oh, they wouldn't give me the time of day, or maybe that's not the right spot. We've made so many amazing connections and learned a lot of lessons and gained perspective, made friends just by asking, just by speaking out, even if it seems like we might be talking up a little bit too high. You might be surprised.
Dude, that's how we run this show.
Yeah.
it is amazing the people we get to talk to. Just we're like, hey, you wanna come and talk to us?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Like,
Oh, shit. Yeah.
I didn't think I'd get this far.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's amazing when it happens.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I love
It
Yep.
can't be overstated, really. Like it so many, like from a business opportunity standpoint as well, you know, as you're growing and all the rest of that, like certainly you have to kind of go through your own like hard knocks, and like you have to go through that tough period of like building value from nothing, and like that's the toughest portion. But like if you can make it through that filter, even while you're through that process, if you see an opportunity, it doesn't do harm to politely reach out and present that to somebody. The worst they can say is no. And I think a lot of people in their personal lives, they might have had like rejection or disappointment or something like that, and they kind of carry it over to like the business side of things. And one of the biggest things I would say is if you're starting a business and you're making like those outreaches on behalf of the business, people won't take it personally if you're polite and courteous and you present it from the business side, your request. They're not going to think less of you, or like, you know, it's especially like if you don't have a whole lot of experience in the business world or like talking to people and that sort of thing, you can make this assumption of like, oh, well, you know, like it's going to be a very emotional interaction and like I'm going to mess it up and they're going to think about me and like how awkward it was. And like none of that's happening. Like the guy that you're reaching out to is busy. He's doing his own thing. If you were awkward or you stuttered on the phone, he's going to forget about that in like 10 seconds flat. So getting over that inhibition and putting yourself out there and making that ask, whether it's an introduction to somebody or a business relationship where you want to get established as a dealer with somebody, that sort of thing, you'd be surprised just by asking how many yeses you're going to get.
I love that. That is good advice. That's
That
really
was.
good
I don't know
advice.
what you guys are on about. That was
Yeah.
excellent dad advice.
My dad advice was just going to be like get more sunlight and go for walks. So yeah, I think you win for
Go
playing-
outside.
Yeah.
Damn it.
I do have one other thing though that I would
course.
say. I think there's a lot of people who are nervous about phone calls specifically. Like if you haven't spent time on the phone and like you have to make those calls, especially like on behalf of a business and it's an important call.
A lot of life isn't as face to face these days too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
especially in this community.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you can push through that. It is, there's no secret to it other than just doing it until you're desensitized to it. And personally, I was very worried about phone calls and very like at the start of the business when we were having to work on like the freight and stuff like that. It was very like,
But they're important because you can get like 2 days worth of emails done in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like an aside to like ask and you shall receive, talk and you shall receive.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Anyways, thanks for coming on, guys. I'm looking forward to the next time we get to pal around already. I guess I've ruined my dad advice, so this one is going to be weird to people in drive-thrus.
You don't have to. It's just a guess thing.
I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway.
I'm
I'm going to do it anyway. Be
Like,
weird.
Nathan will be like, and my dad advice.
My dad
I'm like,
advice. Be horrifying to everyone you meet. Maybe one day you'll find a random McDonald's employee to build a suicide pact with.
It's better to be memorable. It's better to be memorable.
Be memorable. Very important. No, that you know what?
good.
That's beautiful, Nathan.
That's wholesome.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
It's better to be dead than boring.
Yeah, you should put that. You should put like a pause at the end, and then just have that.
Oh yeah. These days I know to wait.